Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Pastor and Aaron Lynn from the Wedgewood Baptist Church. Thank you very much for being here today. And after the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Thank you so much. Brother Al Meredith, our pastor, says hello, so he wants y'all to say hello. My prayer for this meeting is from Psalm 3, and David says this. He says, Lord, you are a shield for me. In the Hebrew, it means you are a shield around me. And I just want to pray that the Lord would do that today. Lord, I pray for these leaders today. I pray for today with the business that's being conducted. I pray that you would be a shield around each and every person today. Give them much wisdom and courage. Bless them in what they do today. Help them to handle the things that might come up that's unexpected, that's from the blind side. Show them you're with them. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Pastor, thank you for coming out today.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have two announcements as it relates to the agenda this morning. The first is under the administrator's section, which is item 9A17, which is out-of-state travel requests. There is a revised travel request that we've included in your court communications this morning. And then also under facilities, item 9D3, this concerns the approval of amendment number 2, the contract with standard parking. There is a revised court communication in your packet dealing with that also. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our special call meeting of August the 12th and of our regular meeting of August the 13th.
Move approval of both.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We have a couple of proclamations or resolutions at this time. Commissioner Brooks.
We have a memorial resolution recognizing Dr. Clarence J. Brooks, my brother, who passed away on August the 10th. The resolution has already been presented to the family, and typically I would make a motion to ratify the resolution, but I'm going to ask a point of personal privilege and ask that you read the resolution into the record, Your Honor.
Be honored.
I'll second that motion, though.
We all second that.
Second. Whereas the family and friends of Dr. Clarence J. Jackie Brooks were deeply saddened by his death on August the 10th, 2013, his passing took from our community an outstanding physician, servant, and mentor who touched many lives. And whereas Dr. Brooks was born on October the 22nd, 1950, the fourth child of the proud parents Marion Jackson and Marie Norris Brooks, followed in his father's footsteps and his passion to serve people through medicine and leadership. And whereas in 1975, at the age of 24, he graduated from the Howard University College of Medicine as the youngest member of his class and was recognized as the #1 medical student in family practice. And whereas upon returning to Fort Worth, Jackie joined the Brooks Clinic, serving alongside his father, seeing an average of 30 patients a day, serving as medical director at 2 nursing homes, delivering babies and performing hospital rotations at 2 local hospitals daily. And whereas in 1976 he was named president of the Sickle Cell Anemia Association of Texas and traveled throughout the state educating communities on the disease and the benefits of being tested. And whereas he believed in giving back to the community through donations to many causes, including the Sickle Cell Anemia Association of Texas, American Heart Association, and Howard University, as well as continuing the Brooks family open-door policy to treat anyone regardless of their ability to pay, and expanding the legacy of community stewardship that was passed to him. And whereas he was a loving husband to Sonia Hamilton Brooks, devoted father to Leah Brooks Butler and Cody Elaine Brooks, daughters from a previous marriage, he was doting grandfather to Caleb and Gavin Butler, and cherished brother of Commissioner Roy Charles Brooks, Marion Brooks Bryant, Carol Eleanor Brooks, and Marie Brooks Washington. And whereas he will be fondly remembered for being a man after God's own heart, an utmost servant and friend to all, now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners' Court of Tarrant County, pay tribute to the memory of a beloved and honorable man, and extend our deepest sympathy to the members of his family and his many friends for their great loss. In witness whereof, we've hereunto set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 20th day of August, 2013. We have a motion, and all seconds, please vote. Motion passes unanimously. It was a beautiful service Saturday. There was a great turnout from the community, and I know you and your family are suffering right now, and we're all thinking about you and keeping you in our prayers.
I was lifted up by that great turnout, especially you, Judge, and you, Commissioner Wynn. Thank you for taking your time on Saturday to be with us. And, of course, our county clerk, Mary Louise Garcia, was at the wake. So thank you to my county family.
Commissioner Wynn, I believe you have a resolution.
Yes, sir. Judge and Commissioners, during the past 3 years of being on this court, I have learned that Tarrant County has always been supportive of personal achievement and excellence. And today, we have the honor and the pleasure of welcoming one of those shining examples. Present today, we have a young lady. Her name is Wendy Okolo. She is an outstanding young person, but she's also a extremely intelligent student. She is a candidate for PhD in aerospace engineering from UTA. And her sister, Iffy Harry, is also here with us. Iffy, can you raise your hand? There you go. Wendy, there you go. Okay, and then we also have Florence Harry, her mother, is also here with us. And equally important, we have Dr. Attila Dogan, who is Wendy's research advisor. He is an associate professor of aerospace engineering at UTA as well. So, Judge, would you please read the resolution into record?
Whereas Wendy Okolo,
Close enough.
I'm sorry, me and names. Whereas Wendy, an aerospace engineer graduate student at the University of Texas at Arlington, is investigating aircraft formation flight as a fuel-saving method of flight and utilizing unconventional trimming methods such as internal fuel transfer and differential thrust to increase the benefits of flying in formation. And whereas the potential of this research, if implemented, will translate to millions of dollars in savings for both the military and civil aviation sectors. And whereas she enrolled in UTA in 2006, finished baccalaureate studies in 2010, and is now following a 4-year fast-track doctoral plan. And whereas Ms. Okolo has received the National Defense Science Engineering Graduate Fellowship, and whereas she previously earned an Amelia Earhart Fellowship awarded to women who have demonstrated superior academic achievement and who are pursuing doctoral degrees in an aerospace-related field, and whereas she has also received a Texas Space Grant Consortium Fellowship awarded to 18 graduate students pursuing studies in aerospace-related sciences, and whereas she previously earned the John Leland Atwood Award from the American Institute of Aerodynamics and Astrodynamics, which is given to a student actively engaged in research in an area covered by the Institute, and whereas the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County places strong emphasis on academic and personal excellence and wishes to encourage women to enter the engineering field, now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby commend Wendy Okolu for her extraordinary academic accomplishments both locally and nationally. In witness whereof, we have hereunto set our hands and cause the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 20th day of August, 2013.
I move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Wendy, can you please come to the podium, please? Keep up the good work.
That's what we call a rocket scientist. That's
Shannon, she'd be a good example for our Gen Hope students. You need to talk with her.
Y'all all step out here and get your pictures. Don't worry about it. They're here for. Come on out. Get on out there and get a picture. And if y'all all three want to come up there, why don't all three of, yeah, there you go, the sister and mom.
Professor?
Get in the middle of it, Andy.
Why don't you share with us a bit about your research?
Like we're going to understand it.
Okay, I can do that. Do I need to speak into this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
All right. My research is in the area of formation flight. So it's kind of like when you see birds flying in a V formation when they travel long distances.
Like ducks?
Like ducks, exactly. So when they
Commissioner
travel.
Fick is a duck hunter.
Oh.
Hey, those ducks know what they're doing.
So essentially what they're doing is that the birds behind, like any leader, is taking advantage of the upwash that comes out from the wingtips of the birds. And if you position yourself, if that bird positions itself strategically in that upwash, it can take advantage of the upwash and get reduced drag and require less power to fly. So we're trying to take that concept and apply it to airplanes. So if you fly an airplane in a certain location behind another, it will get reduced drag benefits and save fuel. So if you can apply this to, the existing fleet that we have right now with both the military and the civil aviation sectors and fly aircraft in formation over long distances, you can achieve significant amount of fuel savings that will translate to savings in a lot of dollars. So it's very easily implementable. I'm really excited about it, and I'm looking forward today that this will be implemented.
Wendy, thank you very,
Thank
very
you.
much.
We are so very proud of you.
Early, did you understand all that? I think that's probably right. Again, we congratulate you and are very glad that you and your family were able to be out here today. And Professor, give her some good advice and keep her going. It's a great university. Court members, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Engineering is what made me an accountant. Or I should more specifically say physics and calculus are what made me made me decide I didn't want to be an engineer and wanted to be an accountant.
That's why you see when the birds fly in formation like that, you'll see that they will rotate who becomes the point on that, because they save energy, because the ones behind them, the one who expends the most energy is the point person.
And you're getting your doctorate when, Mr. Mania?
No, but actually I started as an aerospace engineer.
And the one at
a
the
long
back's the
time
one
ago.
that gets shot, isn't it?
The ones in front, they're the toughest ones because they work their muscles so much.
So you shoot the ones at the back.
Right.
I just simply observe the beauty of nature.
Indeed.
So, members of the court, we can go to item number 1. We're requesting that the Commissioners' Court concur to actions of the Hospital District Board of Managers and approve a commercial lease agreement between the Hospital District and McDonald's USA.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah. I thought we were going to improve the food offerings at JPS when this lease terminated.
You know, I would.
How can you improve on McDonald's? I mean,
They definitely got the best fries.
Yeah, but it's not the healthiest alternative.
You know, it's interesting. McDonald's has been a point of controversy, but what we've done is we've looked at McDonald's and we've looked at the diversity of their menu, and we've asked them if they could use JPS as a model for their restaurants to create a diversified menu. It would include salads and other low-caloric meals. The other thing that we need to consider about McDonald's, and I'm not here to defend or say negative things about the McDonald's Corporation.
I've got nothing against McDonald's. I just find it an odd choice for a public hospital.
There's a lot of odd choices in a lot of different facilities in trying to provide food services. What we are going to do, though, is prior to this, McDonald's has had a non-compete requirement in their contract, and we've removed that because we want to be able to have diversity amongst the restaurants that are there so that we can have that. So we can have that. We can have particularly other situations that would be beneficial, and that's really what we've done to try to do that. So,
Thank you.
you bet.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Member of the Court, we can go to item number 2. Again, we're requesting that the Commissioners' Court concur with actions of the Hospital District Board of Managers and approve an outpatient pharmacy project construction contract between the district and Hutcherson Construction in the amount of $833,660 and an overall project budget of $1.812060 million.
move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Finally, members of the court, on item number 3, again, we're asking that the court approve and concur with actions of the Hospital District Board of Managers and approve the St. Joseph Service Yard project construction contract, which is located on the property of St. Joe Demolition and Abatement Project between the district itself and Hutcherson Construction.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Let me see here. Ms. Glenn.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have 3 items for the court this morning. The first item, we're asking the court to receive and file the personnel agenda.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file personnel agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item, we're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for Precinct 4. Secretary 5 will retire actually on August 30th with 400 vacation hours. The commissioner is requesting a waiver effective August the 31st. We're estimating that the net cost to the Road and Bridge Fund will be approximately $8,800, excluding fringe benefits.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our third and final item, we're asking the court to approve plan choices, service provider selections, and contribution rates for funding employee health care benefits in plan year 2014. So that's a mouthful. I think probably the quickest way to move through what action we're asking from the court today is if you will turn to your exhibits. You should have exhibits A, B, C, and D. So Exhibit A, actually court has already taken action on this item. We were here back in May, and at that time the court approved for plan year 2014 our medical plan choices that will be offered to our active employees. That's the PPO Enhanced plan, we call it Enhanced because it has been enhanced for 2014, and the high deductible health plan. If the court recalls, the high deductible health plan will replace the EPO plan in 2014. So the two far right columns in Exhibit A, those are plan choices for 2014. The court's already voted on that. These are just sort of a rehashing of plan provisions in the event that the court has questions about those. So in terms of action, if you'll flip then to Exhibit B, this document should look familiar. It's a document that we provide to the court every year, and here we show the court our service providers for 2014. We also show you rates for 2013 as well as 14. So I hope that your document is highlighted. On my document, items 4 and 5 on page 1 are highlighted because they represent changes from 2013. Specifically, item 4, we have our United Healthcare administration fees. The total fee for 2014 will be $36.97. That's a per employee per month rate. That does represent an 8% increase over 2013 rates. And again, these are the fees that we pay for claims management as well as disease management for our participants in the United Healthcare plan. Item 5 on page 1, we're showing the court our fees that will take effect in 2014 for those employees who have or who select the high deductible health plan and have the health savings account. Of course, those two go together. And so you see fees for 2014. There is a per employee per month fee of $125 that the county will pay on behalf of all employees who establish a health savings account. There are two fees potentially that employees can pay. $2.50 per month will be paid by employees who choose to invest their account balances. If their balances exceed $500, then they will have a fee of $2.50 per month that they pay. If their account is less than $500, there's a monthly fee of $3. And again, both those fees are employee-paid fees.
And those fees are to cover what?
The employee-paid fees as well as the county-paid fees, these are fees associated with the health savings accounts that will be in place in 2014 for those employees that select the high deductible health plan.
It'll be the administrative costs of just dealing with that. The investment part would be the cost of moving the funds into whatever investment that the individual employee might decide. Because the individual employee will direct those investments if they so choose to do that. Otherwise, that money will remain in a money market type of an account where it, under current day, will probably earn absolutely nothing.
Correct. So if there are no questions about those two items, if you'll turn with me then to the second page. And again, I hope your items 8, 11, and 13 are highlighted because they do represent changes from 2013. Item A, the fee that we pay, and this is a county-paid fee for the Employee Assistance Program We're looking at a 27% reduction in plan year 2014. So we're looking at $1.23 per employee per month that we'll pay as opposed to $1.68 that we pay currently. Item 11, the long-term disability premium, is a percentage of payroll. We're looking at a 16% decrease for that item from 0.25% of payroll down to 0.21% of payroll. And item 13, while you don't see an actual change in the fee will be exactly the same. What we're trying to demonstrate with item 13 is that in today's world, PayFlex administers what we call a general purpose flexible spending account on behalf of all employees. In 2014, employees will have options. Those employees who select the high deductible health plan will have what is called a limited purpose flexible spending account. The limited purpose flexible spending account, as the court recalls, will cover out-of-pocket expenses related to dental, vision, and also medical out-of-pocket that exceeds the deductible. So, and that's a function of regulations that are in place that govern what you can and cannot have when you have a high deductible health plan. So our employees, as the court is aware, all employees receive a contribution into their flexible spending account. That will not change for 2014. What will change, though, is that for those who select the high deductible health plan, then they will have their money deposited into a limited purpose flexible spending account. Same amount of money, and again can be used for the uses for the services that I've outlined. So again, no change in fee, just so that we're all clear about what is going to be available in 2014.
But no longer for prescription drug copays?
Not out of your limited.
Not out of the limited purpose.
Because under the high deductible plan that we're going into, and this limited purpose is only for those individuals in the high deductible plan. Mm-hmm. The people in the high deductible plan, you can't use the flex money to pay for the deductible portion, and the deductible portion is going to be $1,500.
Yes,
per individual
and
$3,000 per family.
Mm-hmm.
After you get to the $1,500 deductible, there's another potential $1,000 out of pocket. To spend any of that $1,000 out of pocket, you put up basically 10 cents and the plan puts up 90 cents. So in order for you to have spent all of the $1,000 out of pocket extra above that $1,500 deductible, you'll have to have $10,000 worth of total medical expenses above the $1,500 deductible.
Commissioner Brooks, though, but in the health savings plan, $2,500 that the judge is talking about, the $1,500 and $1,000, when the employees put that money in, that is, it basically has the same tax advantage as if they would have put it in a flexible spending account.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a matter, again, of you trying to estimate whatever you put in this limited general purpose can still be lost. What you put in your health savings account will not be lost. It will carry forward with you, and it will go with you anywhere. But the maximum amount that you can put into the health savings account on an individual basis is $3,300 unless you're an old person or an older person.
And I don't qualify for that.
Yeah, not yet.
Not yet.
But some of us do, and then we get to put an extra $1,000 in from that standpoint. So,
and again, no change in the actual fee, just again an opportunity to explain what employees can anticipate in 2014. So the final page, page 3, I believe, of Exhibit B, if you'll go with me to item 16, those are insurance premiums for our Medicare eligible retirees. Now these are just the full raw premiums, for lack of a better way to describe it. This does not indicate how much of this premium retirees pay. These are just the full premiums. And so you can see the 2013 rates as well as the 2014. We have rates there for the Medicare Advantage plan, the Medicare Supplement plan with drug coverage, without drug coverage, as well as what we call the add-on rates for those Medicare-eligible retirees who carry dependents who are not yet eligible for Medicare. And again, these are just raw rates. This is not what retirees will pay. So those are what we're asking for item, or for action on Exhibit B. And again, these rates will be effective 2014.
And did you cover the item 14 in the fact?
I may have skipped that one. And again, this is just a description of where we are today versus where we'll be in 2014. Today, we have just what we call the general purpose flexible spending account, and then in 2014, we'll have the limited purpose as well as the general, or limited FSA as well as the general purpose FSA. Thank you.
I move for its approval.
I'll second. Discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
So we have two more exhibits then. If you'll flip with me one page to Exhibit C. Exhibit C, the recommendation that you see for 2014 is at the bottom. It's the bottom chart of your page, your Exhibit C. This is a recommendation that's been made by the county's internal benefits group. It's a court-appointed benefits group. And so we met a couple of weeks ago and really spent, I think, a lot of time looking at options and discussed options for 2014. And what we've come up with is what you see at the bottom of that page. So at the top of the page, you have 2013 rates, just as a point of comparison. In today's world, again, at the top of the page, we offer the EPO and the PPO plans. You can see the pink column in the middle of the page shows you monthly premiums paid by employees today at the various tiers for the EPO and PPO plans. At the bottom of the page, again, you see proposed 2014 rates. You see the high deductible health plan rates at the top of the chart and the PPO rates at the bottom of the chart. To the left, you'll see a yellow chart or columns, and what we're trying to show the court will be the impact, the monthly impact in premium to employees depending upon what choices they make in 2014. So if you'll just bear with me, I'll go through a couple of examples and I think you'll be able to follow it. So if the court approves these rates for 2014, if I select the high deductible health plan and I cover just myself, I will pay $66 per month for that coverage. So if you look to the left of that, so that means if today I'm in the EPO plan and I elect to move over into the high deductible health plan, I'll see a savings of $30 per month in premium costs. If I'm in the EPO plan today and I choose to go to the PPO plan, and you'll see the PPO plan rates right below the premium rates for the high deductible health plan, I will pay an additional $25 per month. Likewise, if today I'm on the EPO plan, I select the high deductible health plan. If I have family coverage, in 2014, I'll pay $290. That will be a savings to me of $89 per month, because today for that coverage I pay $379. So again, it can be a little bit confusing, but we're just trying to show the court, based upon what plan an employee is in today and what plan they select in 2014, what the financial impact will be to that employee. And I'll let you take a look at that, and of course we'll take questions if you have questions.
Any questions? Do I have a motion to approve?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. No discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Now, on that page, we have one additional item that we need to discuss, and it's actually just the little asterisk right below the 2014 rate chart. And so the committee is also recommending $750, a flat amount, in what we call seed money. And Commissioner Brooks, you were asking earlier about the high deductible health plan, and I was explaining that what we're proposing for 2014, what the court has approved for 2014, is the high deductible health plan, and what will sit right beside it is what we call a health savings account. And as the judge pointed out, with the health savings account, the money that goes into that account is the employee's. It is not the county's money. So the employee does not forfeit the money if they choose not to spend it.
It rolls over.
It rolls over from year to year. When employees leave county service, that is their money. That is not the county's money. So what we discussed when we were here back in May, we had a little bit of discussion about seed money. And seed money would be the amount of money that the Commissioner's Court would agree to place in the health savings account on behalf of employees for those who select the high deductible health plan to get them started in the health plan so that they would have some money to help offset the deductibles that they're going to face in that account. And so we provided you with Exhibit A, and that shows you what those deductibles are. So for the high deductible health plan in 2014, the individual deductible is $1,500. The family deductible is $3,000. Okay? So what we're saying, what the committee is recommending is $750, and we're calling it a flat amount. So if I'm an individual, if I have just employee-only coverage, I select the high deductible health plan with this recommendation. $750 goes into my health savings account. January 1 rolls around. I incur expenses. I'll have to meet my deductible, the $1,500. The $750 will go halfway there in helping me to meet that deductible if this amount is approved. Keep in mind, employees also have the $240 in the flexible spending accounts that potentially, well, I guess not, I'm sorry, in the limited purpose, but that's not until later. So we get you halfway there with the $750 in this recommendation. We looked at other recommendations. Some of us, I won't name names, were in favor of larger amounts of seed money. It was the judge and I. But we had some issues with skewing the plan values. So according to Diana and the consultant, the $750, again, helps the employee meet the deductible. And in addition to that, it keeps the plan value where it should be so that we're not at risk, we think, in 2018 of having to pay the excise tax, which is sort of what we're marching towards in the recommendations that we're making.
And I'm going to tell you that I still have not talked with Diana to determine how all this affects our value and don't necessarily agree with that, but the $750 is what we done. Let me explain this as to what you're going to encounter potentially from talking with folks. January comes around. In the past, with our flex plan, if I have a $1,000 expense and I have committed to pay, or I've said to the county, I'm going to put in $100 a month and $1,200 over the year, and I have that $1,000 expense in January, I send it to the flex plan and they pay the $1,000 even though I've not put any money in. Mm-hmm. Under this new high deductible plan, with exactly the same expense, if I incur a $1,000 expense, even though I have said I'm going to put in $3,000 over the year, or $250 a month, if that $1,000 bill comes in January, I have to pay it. And I can get reimbursed from my health savings account over the time as I put it in. I can draw it out, but I don't get the advantage of having it paid because it is my account, and no longer can I front, or no longer will there be monies there to front for that. That was the expense, that was the risk on either side of that deal. Now, that's the reason we're putting the seed money in. We're putting in $750 to try to convince people, one, to start out in the high deductible plan and to begin making their own contributions. We do not propose that that $750 would be an annual thing that we do. We're saying this is a one-time, get you started, but what our employees who are going into that high deductible plan need to be doing is they need to be putting money in there so that they've got a balance to carry forward and hopefully be able to do it. In the example that we're looking at, if you look back over the page where we just talked about the decrease in premiums, let's take the employee and the family. It's going down by, if you're in the EPO and you move to the high deductible plan, that's an $89, almost a $90 a month savings. We would hope and encourage our employees who do that to put that money into an HSA, and therefore that would be $1,000 contribution on their part, along with the $750. And then the whole key to this, and the whole reason this high deductible plan that we're looking at, is that it encourages you and I to look at what we spend. Can we go to a generic drug and spend less than we can if it's not a generic? Can we be a little bit more choosy as to where we might get a lab test done? Or can we talk a little bit more with the doctor about a procedure that they're recommending versus saying that you got to get this thing done? And that's what this whole thing is intended to do. And the reason for the increase in the PPO plans is because we have kind of enhanced the benefits of the PPO, and again, in an effort to maintain this magical, the value of doing away with the EPO and just having the one PPO plan. We are going to need to do a good job of trying to communicate to our employees the importance of putting money into this. It's tax-free money. And the thing that we're going to have to do the best job of communicating is that no longer do you lose it if you don't use it. I mean, the goal here is to put it in there and then not to use it, because it'll always be there for you. And if it's some place down into the future you decide you want to use it for something other than medical expenses, you can do that, but you have to pay tax on it.
Right.
But it will always be there to pay premiums and to do things like that for you later on, as long as you've got a balance that carries forward.
So until an employee reaches a balance in their health savings account equal to the deductible and the out-of-pocket amount, then what we're offering them in terms of health insurance is catastrophic coverage only.
That's not exactly correct, Commissioner, and I'll show you if you'll go back to your Exhibit A.
To what?
Exhibit A.
Go back to your Exhibit A. If you look at preventative care, the high deductible health plan will still cover that at 100%. And that's the result of health care reform. So we have...
Define preventative care.
It would be your annual checkups for you and your family members. Today, that's covered at 100%. And in 2014, no matter which plan you select, the enhanced PPO plan or the high deductible health plan, your annual checkups will be covered at 100%.
And don't we also have a few other tests or lab work that are 100% paid for as preventative? At one point in time, I thought there was some mammograms that may have been covered at 100%. I thought that there were like colonoscopies that were covered for 100%.
I don't know if Joyce is here. Do you know if those are still going to be covered at one?
I don't have the list committed to memory, but you are correct. There's a menu of preventative services that are covered at 100%. Your thinking is correct. I just don't have all of them committed to memory.
So we're not changing the preventative. We're still paying for 100% of that. That won't be a part of the deductible or anything. But
Right.
from the perspective, Commissioner, you're right. Now when I go in to buy my prescriptions or pay for my prescriptions for high cholesterol, instead of paying the $30 or the $50 copay, I'm going to pay the full cost of that prescription up and until the time that I get to the deductible, the $1,500. And then above that, the insurance company's going to pay 90%, and I'm going to pay 10% up until I get to $2,500.
Correct.
And so there is that exposure. Now, at the same time, I can put $3,300 a year in, which will be more than what I know my out-of-pocket expense will be for me. Because by this plan, what we're saying is that $2,500 is the maximum amount that I'm going to be out of pocket. I can take...
Including your deductible and...
Yes.
And my out-of-pocket. And in order for me to really get to the extra $1,000, that means that I've really had to incur $11,500 of expenses. Now, that means I've got something happened, because for most of us, we don't get anywhere near that. But if I put the maximum I can put into that HSA account, which because I am older than our HR director, I can put up to $4,300 in there, then I can be for sure that I'm going to have $1,800 left over at the end of the year.
But how many employees do we have that can afford to do that?
I'm not going to disagree with that, but they're still having to pay the co-pays out of pocket right now.
But that's a heck of a lot less than having to pay,
Well,
having to meet a $1,500 or $3,000 deductible.
My response to that is twofold. You know, we're certainly not anticipating that every employee is going to select the high deductible health plan for the reason that you've just indicated. And so we have the PPO plan there, and as the judges pointed out, we have made some enhancements in the plan so that it's more attractive, it will be more attractive in 2014 and will cover more than it does today. The second comment, I'll tell you, just in our department, and I'm sure this is happening in other departments, I mean, we have employees putting paper to pen. And so I know for a fact we have a couple of folks in HR who are making a decision to select the high deductible health plan. They know what their out-of-pocket expenses are today, including co-payments. And as the judge indicated, there's no maximum on your co-payments today. So if you have a chronic condition, if you have a dependent with a chronic condition, if you're at the doctor's office 20 times in a year, you're going to pay that co-payment every time you're there. So what we have some folks doing, because they're anticipating they're going to have similar out-of-pocket expenses in 2014, they're looking at what they've paid in their co-payments, whatever their out-of-pockets have been, and I know two of them have determined, I'll be there before the end of 2014, and so for them, the high deductible health plan will make sense because it gets them to their out-of-pocket quicker. They'll get to the out-of-pocket quicker, and then the plan will pick up and pay 100%. And so, you know, it takes...
I fear that we're going to put our lower-paid employees in the position of not being able to fill their prescriptions, or having to make the choice as to whether or not they're going to fill their prescriptions or pay their rent or buy groceries.
Well, and the thing that I would say is our consultants are estimating that only 8% of our employees are going to move to the high deductible plan. They believe that the rest of the folks will go to the PPO plan, which will be the same copays.
Correct.
And what it will cost is, by moving to the PPO plan, it will cost the employee an extra $25 a month, I believe is, no, wait a minute, I think is it $30 a month?
Well, if they are moving from the EPO to the PPO, it's $25 per month. If they're in the PPO and are going to keep the PPO for next year, it will be an additional $30.
So it will cost them an
per
extra
month.
$25 a month, but if they pay the extra $25 a month, then by what Tina just said, then the individual rate goes from what is currently now a $500 deductible to a $300 deductible, $600 for family. All the percentages stay the same. The out-of-pocket decreases from $3,500 to $3,300, Everything else remains the same. The co-pays all remain the same, and nothing else changes from that perspective. So it's not like we're forcing everyone. And again, our consultants say that it will be a, it's going to take a period of time, and they're only again estimating that 8% of the folks will move into the high deductible. So the PPO is still there, and that plan really enhances somewhat the EPO or the PPO that they may have been in the past.
So I hear what you're saying, Commissioner Brooks, and we have the same concern, and again, the response is for an individual, and there'll be many employees, I think, who will be in that boat. They're just not willing to take a chance. They're not comfortable with the high deductible health plan. Then they will have the PPO plan, the enhanced PPO plan, and they will get to pay their co-payments when they have their doctor visits. They will pay their co-payments when they go to get their pharmacy or go to the pharmacy to get their prescription drugs. That remains a choice for them. I sort of see this, the high deductible health plan, sort of evolving, much like we saw our flexible spending accounts way back when we began offering the flexible spending accounts. To those of you who were on the commission back then, we didn't have very much participation in the plan, because with the flexible spending account, then as now, there's this phrase that's used that frightens a lot of people still today: if you don't use it, you lose it. It's the Forfeiture Rule, right? So we had a lot of employees who we went out, we did meetings, we said be conservative, and we had employees who just would not risk their money. And so what the court decided to do after a couple of years is they began to make contributions into employees' accounts, so that even if employees lost the money, then theoretically it wasn't their own money. So employees became more comfortable with the flexible spending account and have become more comfortable over time. And I don't know what the stats are. Joyce may have the stats, but we have, I think, more employees today who participate in the flexible spending accounts, who understand them, who know how to use them, who are conservative in how much money they actually contribute, and don't lose any money. And I think audit can support the statement that when we have forfeitures in the flexible spending account, typically it's the county's money that's being forfeited, not the employee's money. So I see this high deductible health plan, and Tom will tell if I'm right or wrong, but I think I see it evolving just like I saw the flexible spending account. We're not anticipating that 50% or 30% or even 20% of our employees will select this plan in 2014. But I think those who select the plan have a good experience with it, will talk to their coworkers about it, and I think in time we'll see more people going into the high deductible health plan. And as those balances build in that health savings account, that will, I think, instill confidence that if I have this deductible that I have to meet, then I'll have money in my account to meet that deductible. So I don't see a vast influx of employees into the plan, but we do have a different option.
I would strongly encourage department heads, or by locations or whatever, that we have meetings in which before or after hours so that everyone can attend. But I would suggest that we have meetings where we really take time to answer questions and to explain this, because this is a dramatic change in, as we go forward in our health care practice from that, in our health care benefits. I think the high deductible, I'm excited about it because it does allow me to begin to accumulate money and for medical costs in future years.
Do the valuations of these recommended options, do they meet the threshold to help us avoid the excise tax right now, the way they are recommended?
I think what's being recommended, as the consultants have explained it to us, put us on the path of ensuring, well...
Only on a path, but we are not there yet.
On the path. I don't believe we're there yet. No,
And I'm not sure we moved very far down that path. I think we may have the path in sight.
We're aiming for that target in 2018.
So I think it's important that we understand, that everyone understand, that one of the major reasons we are doing this is because we have to meet with the federal regulation. Otherwise, we will have to pay $5-point-something million conservatively
Yes.
in excise tax.
In 2018,
And
yes,
that
sir.
is, instead of making that big jump off the cliff, we have to stair-stepping it
Right.
until 2015 or so,
18, I believe.
2018. Okay. So that is a major reason why we have to. We have no other choice.
Yes, sir. We need to make some changes. Otherwise, we will be looking at an excise tax, I think that's being estimated today to be a little bit more than $5 million. Who knows what it'll be in 2018?
And again, the seed money of $750, the court may decide that, okay, we're going to do $750 this year, and next year we're going to do $500, or we may phase that out or do whatever. But at least to begin, we're talking about the $750.
Yes, sir.
So the best thing to do is to take care of your health and make sure you have $2,500 to $5,000 in your health saving account. If you have that, then you'll be safe.
In the high deductible health plan.
In the high
yes, sir.
deductible health plan.
Yes, sir. And if I could make just a follow-up statement, Judge, to your statement about meetings. And yes, we're in the process of scheduling meetings. We are actually having, or Diana's hosting at COG in the next couple of weeks, I think, what she's calling a Train the Trainer meeting. And so Joyce is in the process right now of reaching out to all of our departments. I think Diana's going to give us 30-plus slots. And so we're reaching out to our departments and asking if they'd like to have representation there at the meeting so that then they, those decision makers, can actually get more details, big picture vision of sort of where we are, where we're going, why we're moving in this direction, so that those individuals, I think, are better equipped, maybe not to answer questions, but to have an understanding of what it is that we've been talking about and working on for the past year.
I would also like for you to set up folks in your office or whomever, or be sure these trainers are, that if an employee comes to them and said, help me walk through the steps that I should use to evaluate this. I mean, every one of our employees who is covered in our health plan right now can go on My United Healthcare, and they can look at what their charges have been, what the discounts that United has arranged for us, but what the out-of-pocket would have been had they been paying more than just the copay. So everyone can go back and look at what's the full cost of that prescription, or what was the full cost of that office visit, and if I had been in a high deductible plan, what that would have meant to me.
Yes.
But most of our folks will not understand that that is available, and so I would like to be able to put out a blanket. If you need assistance, call HR or contact this individual, recognizing that that means they've got to lay out what their medical,
Right.
it's the HIPAA stuff, but they'll be waiving HIPAA for those individuals. And if they don't choose to do that, then at least maybe what we can do is to put a step in process, a step in place, and just show them, go here, here's how you get your password set up and be able to get into that account, and then here's the things you need to look at. So if either United or if Diana could set up an example that would walk them through step by step how to do that, that would be very useful.
Yes, sir. And I'm sorry.
Please, when you meet with the employees, take a balanced approach to the presentation of these two options. The presentation this morning seemed to be more geared to trying to steer people to the high deductible plan. I had to pull it out of you about the PPO. The employees need the full range of options so they can make an intelligent decision without us trying to steer them one way or the other.
I agree, and I apologize if that's how I came across. That was not my intention. As it is every year when we go through enrollment, and we've done this for many, many years, and people before us did it for many years, our only interest is in making sure that employees select the best plan for them and their family. And so, again, my apologies if it came across that way. That was not my intention.
And frankly, I'd like to see some of these magical actuaries come up with a study as to do a cost-benefit analysis that will point us in the direction of whether we're going to lose more employees because we have reduced their benefits, and take into consideration the cost of retraining and the loss of institutional memory and efficiency. It may be worth it to us to pay the $5 million.
I'm afraid that the study you're asking us for might cost us the $5 million we're going to save.
We don't know until we look.
I would move that we, as a county, provide the $750 seed money for those individuals enrolling in the high deductible plan beginning January 1st, 2014.
I second.
Further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And did we get a motion on the rates? Did I zone out for a moment? The rates for 2014?
You got a message, yeah, you got a motion that approved all the other stuff before that.
Okay. Then if that's the case, then just one last exhibit, and I'll take my seat. That's Exhibit D. Here we are showing the court employee contribution rates for the dental options that we offer, as well as vision. So both dental and vision is 100% employee funded, and we are not recommending any, or there are no rate increases being recommended for 2014.
So we would have a motion to continue the rates as they are currently.
Yes, sir.
So moved.
Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Public Health is requesting approval for interim financing for 15 grant contracts that are expiring the end of this month. I noticed on the court agenda that our BioSense is left off at the very end. In the details, though, of the court communicate was included, so I don't know if we need to.
BioSense is not on here.
It's just not on right here. It's on right there.
So we'll have to do that next week.
Okay, all right. Then we're asking for 14 contracts for interim financing for 14.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously, and then you'll bring back next week the
one for BioSense.
the one for BioSense.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Beecham.
Good morning, Your Honor. Other members of the court, we have one item for your consideration this morning. That is a bid award recommendation for bid 2013-113. It's an annual contract for the purchase and installation of a fuel and lube body for precinct number 3. Recommendation be toward a per enterprise basis and discount from list price, awarding to the primary and secondary vendors meeting specifications that are shown in your court communique.
Move for approval. Second. We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Court members, are there any appointments today?
May I talk about the auction? Just an update real quick.
I reckon. Go right ahead.
Everything's sold but the Robert Early bobblehead doll. We just kind of put that in the dumpster. It was a $425,077 day, total sale. I want to thank Steve Campbell from Star Telegram for the article he wrote. It piqued a lot of interest. Channels 5, 8, and 11 in Telemundo were there. Got some excellent coverage. We have, because of weather considerations, changed the auction date to May 17 for next year. We've been trying for years to get out of the hot and the cold time, and we accomplished that. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson, for your hosting again. We had over 500 registered bidders. People were standing on top of each other, literally. I understand that the concessions stole 3 times what they expected, so it was a good day for our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. And I was there to the bloody end.
What'd you buy?
Bloody end. Nothing. I made sure that those bought paid, though.
Are there any appointments?
Your Honor,
Yes, there's one that I'd like to put forth. Ken Barr, who is the chair of NTTA's term is up, so he's up for reappointment, and I would move that we reappoint him.
Second.
Will he guarantee 360 South?
I think there's a little thing in the oath that he takes that says he did not guarantee anything as a result of taking this deal. So I will, is there any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. You have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
thank you, Your Honor. We have 4 items to bring to the court this morning. The first concerns the hospital district's FY 2014 proposed budget presentation. Mr. Early is here to address the court at this time.
Fresh back from Iowa and Indiana State Fair, where he showed his horse.
Where are the trophies?
They're at the house. There are. We got them. We did win.
Place?
We got first place in 3 of them and third place in 2 of them.
Now, let me ask this question, because I know it doesn't really make any difference, but which ones did you show?
Which ones did?
The third
Which
place.
shows did you show?
I showed the 2 shows where the horse finished third, and somebody else showed in 3 of the shows where the horse finished first.
So
And I
did
appreciate
the horse finish first and you finished third, or what was
When
it?
I was beside the horse, we finished third. When somebody else was beside the horse finished first. And I appreciate you bringing that out.
He drove the truck.
We all have our
I did.
response.
Was that somebody else, your wife?
No, but it would have won first had she done that, I guarantee you.
I agree.
Yes.
No, we talked about this, and you're in the 2 shows that they had ringers come in from Scotland.
They did. They did.
So.
Those Scottish.
The Scottish guys, you got to watch it. every time.
Craziness. Yeah. Scots and Canadians. Thank you very much for showing my weaknesses with my horse. What I want to do very briefly is make a few comments before our board chair comes up and before David Salisbury comes up. I want to mention that this will be David Salisbury's last budget presentation before the court as he assumes his new roles as a consultant. I can't thank David and his team and Doris Hunt and the many folks back at JPS who spent endless amount of hours working on this. For 4 years, David has done yeoman service for this county and your public hospital, and I appreciate him very much and his efforts to do that. Doris Hunt and her team have done miraculous work. The other thing I want to tell you all is that no one in my time at JPS, and I don't think for any board member at their time at JPS, no one's ever come up to us and said, please don't do anything at JPS. Keep it exactly the same. We're always constantly trying to figure out how to make it better, how to improve upon it. You will see in this year's budget an emphasis on population health, getting folks to a clinical care system, creating a network far stronger for this community than what we have historically had, so that you try to reduce your overutilization of an emergency room and get people in a better health state. As Commissioner Wynn just said about your employees, do your best to get your regular treatments and get your regular visits to the doctor and stay healthy. That's a key. We're trying to do that. We know we've been an outstanding provider for behavioral health services, and we want to expand on those behavioral health services. We also know that there is a huge growing population in Tarrant County of an elder population. If we don't look at geriatrics care from a public health and a public hospital standpoint, we're going to be missing out on part of our population, and we will put an emphasis on that. And we'll also put an emphasis on our infant mortality efforts. The slice of the population that we see at JPS, we want to do everything we can to reduce infant mortality, but we also want to work with the Public Health Department and Catholic Charities and many of the other organizations in town. We already do work with them, but our board has put an emphasis behind that as being one of our major goals at JPS to help offset that. Also, our efforts in Arlington in the Northeast, and what we're trying to do with what we see as a geriatrics program in Azle and Lake Worth, central part of Tarrant County, all of your precincts, by creating stronger clinics and trying to improve the alignment of the physicians, that are the providers there and try to get people into routine care, knowing their doctor, knowing a nurse practitioner, knowing the services that we provide. Easing the process by which you can enroll in connection and getting more people is the emphasis of this. I also want to thank you all and your staffs. Your staff, as you well know, spend a lot of time with JPS on Saturdays and in our budget retreats and asking questions. I think your staff, I saw more participation not only from your staff, but more questions, more concerns, more input that we appreciated greatly. And I think you all need to know that your staffs did a great job at representing you on an all-day long Saturday budget retreat, and we appreciate that. I also want to thank our board, and I want to thank Trent Petty. Last week at this time, Mr. Petty was having some hip surgery, and he's here today on crutches because he cares about what he's trying to do and what he's trying to do for the hospital district, and I appreciate that. Charlie Powell has been under the weather, and Charlie's here. So we don't mean to be the walking wounded, but we are an incredibly strong group of people who are dedicated to what they do. And I'll remind you all again, we only pay them in chocolate chip cookies. So the fact of their dedication to this hospital district, their dedication to me, and ultimately to you and the citizens is overwhelming to me, and I appreciate it very much. I will tell you, with the leadership that we have at our board, you all as commissioners should be very proud of your appointments, every one of them. They have laid out a strategic plan. They have laid out and helped immensely with this budget. But I'll make one comment about our board that I see that is probably different than a lot of boards, in that they are more than willing to stand up and defend what we do and how we do it. We are a place providing difficult situations and difficult care to folks, and I've never seen a board member refrain from stepping up and saying, we are doing this and we are doing that. We appreciate your comments. We have fixed that, or we've done this. So you should be proud of your appointments as well. So with that, I'd like Mr. Petty to hobble to the podium, and if he can come up here, then he will make his comments.
Come up here for just a minute.
Yes, sir. I sure will.
What this tells you is you don't get too close to Mr. Early's horses.
Yeah, seeing the picture, Early looked very small next to those
Next
horses.
to that horse, absolutely. Well, actually, Charlie and I were drawing straws to see who was the sickest to come up here, and Charlie's in worse shape than me, so I drew the short straw. But, you know, as Robert said, we do have a very strong board, and every one of us cherish and appreciate the opportunity that you guys give us to be able to sit on this board. We take it very seriously. We spend a great deal of time and effort and energy at it. This past year has been about transforming health care delivery for Tarrant County citizens, and we've taken that task very seriously. Our year started with work sessions that really began to focus again on the mission of what JPS is here for and what we as Tarrant County Hospital District do for our county. And from that evolved the levels that Robert talked about, the 4 focuses that you will see in this budget. The first of those is the geriatric care program, our behavioral health program, our graduate medical education research, and our infant mortality program. We believe those are all integral to what we have to do at JPS to stay ahead of our population needs in Tarrant County, and all of it falls in our mind under a very broad umbrella of population health. And we are singularly devoted to making certain that population health in Tarrant County takes the focus, and not just what happens in a clinic or not just what happens in an inpatient setting, but how we can literally improve population health for this entire county. And that is our board's singular mission. We appreciate very much the opportunity to serve in that capacity. I will ask that you continue your prayers for our board members. As you know, we have one board member who's direly ill, who has missed many of our meetings this year, and continue to pray for her. But this is a group that very, very passionate about what we do, and we appreciate the opportunity to do it. And with that, I'm going to ask Mr. Salisbury and echo Robert's comment. David has led us from the finance department very ably over the last 4 years. We're going to miss him a great deal, but David's done a super job of putting together a budget that met the board's objectives, which was, first of all, not to increase our taxes, but to very boldly go at looking at population health in Tarrant County and what we can do within our resources to make that happen. So when you see our budget, you see that we have revenues over expenditures. You don't see gigantic surpluses of dollars. You see money going back into the services that we're charged to offer. So we're very proud of the budget, and we feel like it's going to give us a good opportunity to move forward. So if there's no questions for me, I'll invite Mr. Salisbury up, and he can go over the specifics. Thank you all.
Thanks. Thank you, Trent.
Thank you, Trent.
Good morning, Commissioners. I want to thank you, Robert and Trent, for the kind words and the introduction. What I'd like to do today is really just cover some of the highlights of our budget. Obviously, we'll go through the next 3 weeks as a period of time for you to evaluate and to ask questions. We certainly would be willing to provide any additional information that you might have or any other questions that you might have as you try to understand. Obviously, our budget, as you know, is complex. Healthcare is complex, and as we've just heard just in some of your employee benefits plans, healthcare is changing. And as Robert indicated, certainly no different at the public hospital. The presentation that I've given you here really kind of has five areas of handout. I'll kind of touch on 4 or 5 of the slides, and certainly would be willing to take any questions that you have. And as Mr. Petty had noted, I think it's real important to know that the healthcare industry is changing, and we've all heard a lot about the 1115 waiver, and so what we wanted to try to help you to understand is just what does that mean to the district, and how have we looked at it, and how are we fashioning the changes there. JPS has 23 district projects, and we've listed them here, kind of categorized them under kind of our pillars of strategic focus. And so you'll see the first of which, behavioral health, makes up about 22% of our district projects. You'll see we've got 5 projects there, and that's really aimed at expanding access to services by expanding hours of operation. It's aimed at integrating, and one of the things that we're really seeing within the district program is that we're really trying to pull together the behavioral health care together with the acute care. Oftentimes that care is given in separate settings, and so in a number of our projects we're actually trying to bring those two together so those providers can manage the patient more holistically on that. So you'll see some of the projects that we have there. Population health clearly is our leading pillar, as Robert indicated. It's about 58% of our projects, and we as an organization have already been working on population health over the last couple of years, and the district program certainly helped us to really fashion that. And so it really gave validation to the fact that we were doing many of the things that nationwide we're trying to do in terms of population health. But you can see a lot of diverse projects here, from specialty care expansion to programs dedicated to the homeless, to programs based on chronic management and how you help manage through that. Our infant mortality, we have a project called Journey to Life, is really helping to improve and increase prenatal visits there to help with the infant mortality. And then finally, as Robert noted, we have 3 projects around geriatrics. You'll see there palliative care, transition from acute care to rehab care, which we have difficulty with today, and then a chronic care management program around diabetes. And so you know, the waiver, we call them projects. We no longer think of them projects because they really are transforming our organization. And we really wanted to show this year how they are impacting the organization, but as our board chair and others have noted, you know, going forward, this is just a part of who we are. And so, but we wanted to draw that distinction. On top of that, we also have a number of areas. As you know, we're constantly trying to figure out how we can increase capacity. And so for 2014, we will have our 3rd year of our emergency department residents, and so our class is now full. We have, I believe, 32 residents in that program, and so that program has ramped up very nicely. We're actually adding 16 beds in our progressive care unit, so we found a way to expand the amount of progressive care beds that we have there, and we have about 17 staff to staff that. We've actually are going to open a express admit unit. We continually to be challenged by higher and higher emergency room visits and patients backing up in the emergency room and not being able to get admitted into the facility. And so we've created an express admit unit that we're going to start up the 1st of October, and that's going to be about 19 beds to help release some pressure out of the ED. We're also subjected to nationwide standards, and one standard that has changed is the historical standard for staffing for deliveries was 4 to 1, meaning four patients for each nurse, and has now gone to 3 to 1, and so that had an impact. We're going to increase some of our case management staff to help, again, continue to help manage patients through the system. And then we actually have one more piece of EPIC that we're going to bring live in March 31st, 14, and that is 3 modules, one around radiology, one in oncology, and an OR system. And so that will complete all of our EPIC modules that will go live with there. The screen's not moving forward here, but I'll go ahead and, oh, there we go. Okay. So you'll see some of our high-level statistics. One thing that we're seeing in our statistics is a continued push from care from the inpatient setting to the outpatient setting. And where we've seen that occur most frequently is in our short stays, and that's been due largely to changes in payment policies, particularly with Medicare and Medicaid on that. So you'll see here some of our admissions. They've actually are softened some. You'll see over the last 3 years in terms of what we had budget. Those are just inpatient admissions. And you'll see actually inpatient days have softened, but what you'll see is observation days, which is when a patient's not classified as an inpatient, they're then classified as an observation patient. Those days are actually going up on that. You'll see here outpatient visits are expected to increase. We think that's in part due to some of the new district projects, as well as in terms of expanding capacity there. In total, though, you'll see adjusted patient days are pretty much slightly increased from where they were last year.
Please explain what the A, P, and B are.
2012A is the actual for 2012. 2013 is what we projected in June when we used our historical statistics, and then 2014 is our budget. Okay. As far as revenue, I'll make a few items on revenue. We're not seeing, obviously, any increases from the third-party payers and payment rates. In fact, many of them are decreasing on that. Case mix index is real important because it's a measure of intensity. We tend to budget that flat. The one thing I did want to note is the Affordable Care Act and the impact with that. And we, like everyone else, are not quite sure what that means in terms of how it's going to impact us going forward. We've had discussions with some of the third-party payers and even people who are covered, people who will have a 98% premium coverage will still have about $4,000 out-of-pocket cost based on how the plans are structured. And so we're not quite sure exactly how that's going to impact us. We didn't adjust for any both positive or negative reductions to volumes because we're just not quite sure on that.
Do you also, how impacted, if any, will you be by some of the things that have been delayed? 2 things now have been delayed an additional year?
Well, one that we know of, and that was the employer mandate, right? I'm not sure the second that you might be referring to.
I thought I heard something just either the end of last week where there was some individual requirements or penalties that they're
Yeah, the
waiving
individual
for a year.
mandate, there has been discussion in Congress to delay that as well. Under the theory is that you're not going to penalize the employers, why would you penalize the individuals on that?
There's the employer piece, and then there is the
Uninsured piece.
verification of data piece that is not available yet now. Where
I think the point is that if you're not going to penalize the employers for doing it, then the uninsured folks who are supposed to be required to get insurance, maybe we're not going to penalize them either, which means if they're not penalized, then they're probably not going to, unless they really want the insurance, and there are a lot of these folks that do not.
Right.
David,
Certainly, they're not going to be into it. And I thought that penalty had been pushed back a year.
Yeah. Again, I know there was discussion. They may have
I
acted.
believe so.
Sure.
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I'm not sure. One thing that I did want to note, because it obviously affects you all in your public health budget as well, is that there's been concern about the 1115 waiver and just the delay in payments as we in the state and CMS has put that together. We do believe that we see a pathway to those payments starting to occur. We will be I'll be reporting here in a week or so our outcomes for our first reporting on outcomes for the current year that we're in, and the state has made firm commitment dates in terms of timings as to when those payments would come back to us, which would be in the November time frame. On that, we would pay the IGT in October, and then the payment would come back. And so we are seeing, we think, some clarity in terms of those payments, but I know there's been some questions as to, we've gone through the whole year and haven't seen any payments on that, but we believe that's going to start. The DISH program is still being sorted out. There was actually a lawsuit filed regarding the DISH program, and when we met with HHSC staff last week, they believe that's going to be sorted out and resolved by October. So we've seen that. We meet all requirements for meaningful use in terms of being able to get payments from Medicare and Medicaid. On that, we believe tobacco funds and investment income would be pretty consistent. As far as some of the major salary expenses assumptions, one of the things our board has worked pretty significantly on over the last year is trying to revamp our compensation system to be more market-based. And so that has been programmed into this budget, and we are in the first phase of that in moving our clinical staff to a market-based
That other
system.
thing was the relief of out-of-pocket expenses has been pushed off another year.
What's that?
It was the relief of individuals' maximum out-of-pocket expenses.
Oh, that's been pushed off. Okay. And so this will just give you some of the increases that we have. We'll see when we get to the capital budget. We've had a number of large items come off maintenance, come off warranties and onto maintenance contracts there. We have budgeted the public health expenditure at the amount requested. We have added some market, though. There are some cost offsets, some efficiency improvements. We have a pretty large project that we're working with a firm called Owens & Minor. We call it value analysis, where we're looking at really all non-salary expenses and either looking to recontract, looking at lower use items and things of that nature. We started to implement Lean Six Sigma methodologies in the institution, and are starting to see some improvements there. And we've made a lot of strides over the last year in how we manage our overtime and our contract labor. We believe as we implement more of our market-based program, we'll have less need for those types of resources there. As far as the capital budget, or the tax rate, as Robert had noted, the tax rate is level. There you'll see it to 0.227897 on that. I missed one slide there. There it is, capital budget. As far as the capital budget, you'll see $59 million in capital expenditures. Capital equipment is about $18.3 million, and that's made up of a number of items, the most significant of which is our cath lab is in need of replacement, and so we will be replacing our cath lab. We will be purchasing some robotic systems for our emergency room, or for our OR, and we have a CT scanner that needs replaced. Those are the most significant of items. Information technology, we have some storage infrastructure that we're looking to upgrade to. We each year do an annual desktop refresh as we rotate all of our desktop units there. And we're actually going to archive our old Siemens system now that we're off of Epic. We've had to run the dual systems to keep the history. We're going to archive that next year. So those are the items. EMR, this is our phase 2, and then we'll be done with the Epic pieces there. Some new facility renovations are really generated around some of our capital items. So when you replace a cath lab, you just can't stick it in the same place you had it, so you have to really do facility construction around that. We're going to put in a new angio room for that in our cardiology area. Our blood bank is going through some changes in our operations, and then we have some upgrade to our dialysis units. So carryover in terms of new facility, of course we have the outpatient pharmacy. We're looking to expand because our pharmacy is just undersized for the volume that we have. We have the Arlington and the Northeast Medical Home projects that will occur next year, and we're budgeted this year and are just starting now. And then we have some final work in our JPOC building that we have. District projects is really just some equipment for expanding services. It's a contingency there. So just to kind of conclude, as Trent had noted earlier, you'll see here we have a budget of $761.8 million, and you'll see operating expense of $161.7 million there in terms of really pretty much a break-even margin for it, because just as was noted, we take the resources and really put them back into trying to expand the programs. Our investment income, as we've noted, we pretty much held it flat because of no expectation that market rates are going to increase anytime soon.
What's your non-operating revenue?
The non-operating revenue, the biggest piece of that is by the accounting rules that we have to classify that. That's the recoveries on the tax, on prior year tax collections and things of that nature. That's the largest piece of it. We have a few small items. We have some property that has some oil and gas rights that fit into that in a few areas. But that's the biggest piece of it is the refunds or the payments on the late taxes from prior years. So with that, I'll conclude my prepared remarks.
Questions, court members?
You mentioned something about the revised compensation plan to meet the market. Can you describe that a little bit in detail? What do you mean by that?
So what our organization has done is they've really engaged into an analysis of where our positions are relative to the market, meaning market-based surveys, and they're pretty prevalent, obviously, in healthcare, and to the Dallas-Fort Worth market, more particularly on that. In our prior program, we didn't have a program that actively made those comparisons. We really pretty much hired people and tried to identify where they would fit in the job that they were in, and then if there were any increases from year to year, it was really just made from that. What we've done is actually gone out and taken all of our jobs and benchmarked them to a market comparison, and then we stratified the jobs into several different categories, the first of which is being patient care providers, and looked at those. And so what we did was we actually did two things. We actually, first of all, looked at the grade for each one of those positions, and we identified individuals who were actually below the market minimum on that. And so we adjusted those individuals to the market minimum based on their years of experience and their seniority and whatnot. And then secondly, then we compared where those individuals were at to the market. and made an adjustment for those who were out of market significantly on that. And so we broke the organization up into, different groups of people.
How do you define market minimum?
It's based on the market.
Based on the percentile level?
It's based on the market surveys, and all the market surveys, they really give you what they give you. They can't obviously give you individual organizations, but they give you all the organizations that participate in any given survey, and they tell you what the minimum is, what the maximum is, and what the midpoint is. And then we set our ranges based on
So you
that.
actually gone through each position?
Yes.
And adjust each position upward or downward, depending on the result of the study?
That's correct.
Are you aiming at the 50th percentile? Or?
That's what we tend to focus on trying to get people. That's the goal of trying to get people there after certain years of service is to the 50th percentile.
Okay. So how did JPS compensation package fare with the market initially?
How did it
compare with the market?
We were below market, and particularly
below market.
The Dallas-Fort Worth market, we were below, particularly in our clinical positions. And they're the ones that are most market sensitive. Obviously, it depends on supply and demand in the market, and so we found, particularly like RNs. Obviously, RN is our single biggest job. Of our 4,500 FTEs, RNs are going to make up 1,200 of those FTEs, and so you want to make sure you watch where the market is on that.
So essentially, you made the adjustment to align the compensation, the salary structure, with that of the market to make JPS become a little bit more competitive.
Yes,
right?
sir.
And
Yes,
then
sir.
on top of that, you also provide a 3% merit payment.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So. Now, one point to note, market surveys are always, so we benchmark to the market, but they're usually always 12 to 18 months behind. And so we figure if the market's giving 3%, which is pretty normal, we found in the market, that if we do that, then give the merit, we'll
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes
So,
sense. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to thank you for your excellent service to the hospital district and to the people of Tarrant County for the past 4 years. You have brought clarity to this budget process, and I, for one, appreciate it greatly. My one comment is about the infant mortality program. You or Trent or Robert, one of the speakers, indicated that the aim was to focus on your slice, I believe is the way it was put, of the population and make sure that they receive the appropriate prenatal care. I would suggest that this is an opportunity to collaborate with the Public Health Department, because dealing with infant mortality is a lot more complex than making sure that women get prenatal care. It's about community education. It's about the health of the mother before she gets pregnant. And public health is particularly well situated to deal with that end of the equation. And if y'all combine efforts, you might come up with a more robust infant mortality program.
And I'll let Robert or Trent, if they want to comment. What I can tell you is our board had what I would say is one of the most, I think, impressive discussions on this when we talked about this as a strategic priority, because we know that we're only one piece of a bigger wheel. But we know that the degree to which we can take this more seriously and with more emphasis and more resources, the degree that we could help be a catalyst to others, and looking at really trying to help improve what, as you've very aptly noted, is a very complex both medical problem but a social problem and a care progression problem. And so I would tell you that our board clearly sees ourselves as having a role that is very catalytic, but certainly not only one piece of a complicated piece. That especially puts that. So.
Well, welcome to the fight.
So.
You recognize too that Reverend Emerson, who is on our board, has been a great champion for this effort as well, and has really helped us understand that cohesive need to bring those entities together. So very well put, and something we take very seriously.
David, I also want to thank you for everything you did, especially as we went through this 1115 waiver process over this last year, and you've done a fantastic job for us, and we're going to miss you. So.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service very much.
Any other questions at this time for
Thank you, David.
either David or for any of the folks?
As a consultant, are you going to come back here?
Yeah, he's going to do it to us for free.
I would love to.
Give us
I
a
would love
50%
to.
discount.
No, he's going to give it to us for free. Don't be giving no 50%.
That's right. Robert's
man
our,
got family
that's
to
right.
feed.
No, would absolutely love to. And so thank you for your kind words.
Members of the court, if we can go to
Mr.
item...
Early, was that everything that you had?
It is, unless you have anything else.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Mr. Petty, thank you for making it down here today.
I think you need to be thanking Mrs. Petty for
Charlie,
making it
too.
down here today.
I think you should have been in a wheelchair, but and had no business.
She drew the line at driving. She wasn't pushing no wheelchair.
Bye-bye.
Are we ready to proceed?
I think we are. Go right ahead.
Members of the court, we can go to item B. This is an update on the Kids Growing Healthy program in Tarrant County. This presentation is going to be made by the Public Health Department. Ms. Leatherman is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And first I would like to start by thanking Judge Whitley and the commissioners for allowing me to present this award-winning program. So I'd first like to start with the background of the program. Basically, Kids Growing Healthy addresses the major public health concern of childhood obesity. And in 2006 is when we initially developed, conducted a needs assessment and developed the program with the United Way of Tarrant County's information reported that 30% of Texas school children were overweight. We also utilized the information from the Behavioral Risk Surveillance Survey, which reported that 64% of Tarrant County adults were overweight or obese. So using that data, we kind of targeted various areas and school districts within the various precincts to focus our efforts. Kids Growing Healthy focuses on specifically food choices and portions, as well as physical activity as far as frequency, duration, and intensity of activity. Those are the two methods that we have utilized to reduce the overweight and obesity. A description of the program, our target audience was fifth graders in Tarrant County, and over the course of the implementation phase, since 2006, we've been able to reach 1,973 fifth grade students. Kids Growing Healthy consists of 4 interactive lessons. Typically, they're set up 1 lesson per week through the PE classes or through the health lessons. And what we focus on is fruit and vegetable consumption. We also look at food portion sizes, as well as reading food labels. And again, these are all interactive sessions. We also look at frequency of fast food, as well as the foods that they select at fast food restaurants. And the way we monitor that is we have them keep track of a food and physical activity journal. Each student receives a workbook, and in that workbook, they also have a diary. And they're able to log their physical activity and eating choices over the program. We also look at sedentary and physical activity time and kind of do a comparison there. Our partners in this process, in the development phase, we partnered with Texas AgriLife Extension Services to develop the program. With implementation, we worked with local school districts, and there are too many right now to mention, but with a numerous amount of school districts. We also partnered with the communities and schools, And for the evaluation component of the program, we worked with our epidemiology division. The outcomes revealed between pre- and post-test scores in Lesson 1, the students take a pretest, is regarding their knowledge about nutrition, physical activity. And then we also conduct a post-test at the last session. And we found an 8% increase in participant knowledge. The three-month follow-up evaluation is conducted as well. What we found was an 11% increase in fruit and vegetable consumption, which was basically put them above the 5 minimum of fruits and vegetables per day. So we were really excited about that. We also found that 85% of students increased their physical activity in some capacity. And again, this is looking at how often they exercise, or the intensity, or the duration. 77% of students were also more aware of chronic diseases related to poor nutrition choices and lack of regular physical activity. And the two that were noted more than any others were diabetes and heart disease. And the features and awards, Kids Growing Healthy was featured just a few months back at the University of North Texas Health Science Center Childhood Obesity Summit. And we also received a Model Practice Award from the National Association of County and City Health Officials, and that was held just last month in Dallas. So that concludes the program as far as the background, the description of the program, as well as the outcomes and awards. We have been successful in implementing the program in precincts 1, 3, and 4, and we're still working on making some established contacts within precinct 2 as well. So again, thank you for the opportunity to highlight this program. We look forward to continuing the program this coming school year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Members of the court, if we could go to item C. This is an update on the West Nile virus activities. Dr. Curian is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
I have few new updates since last briefing, so it's going to be pretty brief. Last week, we had tested 153 mosquito samples in our public health lab, one of which tested positive, and the positive sample was from the town of Pantego. In response to the positive sample, Pantego had sprayed for 3 days last week, August 15th, 16th, and 17th. We were also notified by the City of Arlington that there was a positive West Nile virus sample from their jurisdiction. City of Arlington, if you recall, is the only city in Tarrant County that also contracts with a private contractor for additional sampling and testing, and this particular sample was tested by the private contractor. And in response to this positive sample, City of Arlington has also ground sprayed this Sunday and yesterday, which was August 18th and 19th. In response to increasing QLEX densities in the unincorporated area, one additional location has been identified, and this location is in Precinct 3 for ground spraying efforts, and the ground spraying will be resumed on this Thursday. We are in the process of completing all the appropriate notifications, the neighborhood notifications currently. We continue to have one human case, which was from the city of Fort Worth. Statewide, we have 100, and this is statewide report dated August 13th. We expect a new report coming up pretty soon, but based on the August 13th report, we have 155 West Nile virus positive mosquito samples statewide from 8 counties, 10 human cases, 2 viremic donors, and no deaths. Thank you for your time.
Any questions?
Thank you. What can you tell us about the measles outbreak, especially in Tarrant County, which seems to be the epicenter?
Okay. This, as you all recall, 2011 was the first time in 17 years that we have had a measles case. We had 2 measles cases, and since 2011, this is the first year we've had a number of measles cases. To date, we have 10 cases, and the age ranges range from 1 year to 44 years. And I will defer any other questions to our Chief Epi, who's heavily involved with the investigation. So if I have your permission, I'll ask him to come up.
Come on up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Curian.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What questions do you have that maybe I could answer?
How come 10 cases? Is it?
Why 10 cases? It started with someone who went to a place of the world where it's common, came back, transmitted or visited with some folks, and then anyways, they ended up being infected, and then we've had some others that caught the disease from them. And so we're following up. Out of those 10 cases, I'll tell you, we know of at least 7 of them that were not immunized, so they were particularly vulnerable. Measles being one of the more contagious diseases we know of. So if you're not immunized and you're around it, there's a very good chance you'll get it.
These unimmunized 7 cases, what age range would you say they are?
I can tell you it's children to adults. I know we've had both.
That narrows it down.
I don't have that in front of me. Beg your pardon?
So that narrows it down.
Yeah, that narrows it down to everyone, doesn't it?
Well, let me ask you
I don't have it in front of me to say I know some were children, some were adults that were unimmunized.
Let me ask you a more specific question. People like me who have never had the measles,
Same here.
and I'm not sure whether I was ever immunized against the measles, because when I went to school, it was the late 50s and 60s, and I'm not sure there was a measles immunization at that point. So would you advise adults who have not had the measles and not been immunized to be immunized?
Our basic message is if you were born in 1956 or before, it was so prevalent. Beg your pardon?
That would be me.
We consider you immune already because it was so
Whether
prevalent.
I had the disease or not?
Back then, as I understand it, and I'll give it away, I was not born at that point. But anyways, at that point, it was so prevalent.
I'm getting tired of this.
By the time people were 6 years of age, they had it. 15. If you don't believe that you had it back then, that's a possibility. I would suggest you talk to your doctor.
I know I didn't have it,
but
but some of my siblings did.
Were you around them before? Or?
We lived together.
Well, you should have had it somewhere in there. But if you're concerned, I'd just suggest you go to your doctor and ask him. And we believe it's one of the safer vaccines. Now, I was born sometime after that, not too long after 56, and I was given an immunization. I remember being lined up outside of a school. We were bused there in 1968 and given 1 shot. By the late 80s, there were epidemics going on.
Do you say
in this
68?
Country. In 68. Now, there had been a vaccine available before then, but they started doing this live vaccine that we currently have in the late 60s, and because it was more effective. By the late 80s, it was determined we really need to do 2 doses, because if you do 1 dose, about 9 out of 10 people will be immunized, and for whatever reason, that other 10%, up to 8 to 10% aren't. You give them a second dose, and we get them up to more like 98, 99 of 100 are now immunized. And that's the kind of level we need that allowed us to eliminate measles from the U.S. as far as indigenous transmission 10 years ago, 13 years ago.
As relates to children, what percentage of the kid population is immunized?
That's on, we were talking about that last night. I don't have that information in front of me right now. I need to look it up, what our vaccine coverage is. That is an important parameter to look at and see, okay, do we have certain areas of the community that are not immunized, and that our immunization program always worries about, how to outreach to them. So I don't have that answer. I can get it for you later.
So it's not one of the immunizations that infants would normally receive?
It's an immunization usually they receive about 15 months of age. You can receive it after 1 year, 15 months, and then you usually get it about 4 or 5 years of age before you go to school. So the current requirements for going to school are 2 doses of this vaccine, and it's a very good vaccine. Some people have some philosophical differences or problems with receiving it, some concerns about it, and the state law allows them to be exempted, so they do not have to immunize.
But normally what you're saying is the first vaccine would be given, or immunization would be given somewhere between the 12-month and around the 15-month mark,
Yes.
And then there would be another one that would be given prior to them entering elementary school. But one of the conditions for entering school is going to be show your immunization record, and you probably will have had to have had those.
For most people, the vast majority of people.
So right now, our concern would be for infants, and I'm assuming that the reason for before 12 months is because up to the 12-month mark, you're still pretty much on the immunizations or the mother's
Passive immunity?
Passive immunity.
Right, and that probably wanes after just a few months. The idea is that by around 12 months and older, the immune system is more mature and you have a better chance of it actually working. In an outbreak situation, if we identify a group that has infants, the recommendation is we can go down to 6 months and give a vaccine to try to prevent disease. Having said that, that 6-month to 12-month vaccine doesn't really count towards school admission later. You have to get it redone.
As of this point, though, as far as the 10 who have it, do you feel like you have identified where and that you don't, do you consider that we need to be doing in a specific area saying, okay, watch this, or do we need to be doing immunizations within a certain area, neighborhood, whatever of the county?
We've worked with a group that we've identified contacts and their associate and their organizations that they're with. And so we've given a little under 200 vaccinations since last Thursday in that group. Immunizing people that weren't previously immunized. In some cases, if we felt like they were susceptible to doing immunoglobulin and because they couldn't get the vaccine. We feel like in that particular group, we know who's getting it. We're having reports. My concern is, and like anyone else, people go to the grocery store, they have other social obligations, and it's an airborne disease that maybe someone out there just happens to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. And that case comes up and it's not identified very quickly. This particular group we're working with very closely and feel good about tracking, and that's where our cases are coming from.
In that group of 10, were you able to discover connections?
Yes. So from the person that came in from overseas, we've been able to say, okay, this person got it, these people got it from this person, and then maybe other people got it from that second generation. So far all of those are connected. But my concern is what about the ones I can't show?
Yes.
So what should folks be looking for if they weren't around this organization or this group? What should they be looking for to be sure they go to their doctor at that point?
Well, the first thing they should look for is, as you pointed out before, do I have an immunization? No, you pointed out before. Do I have an immunization, or have I had disease with this? If you've ever had measles, or if you had an immunization, it should be okay. The second thing is if you're susceptible because you haven't had disease or immunization, it starts off with fever, and then it becomes a conjunctivitis or pink eye, a runny nose, and a cough, and anywhere 2 to 4 days later, you're getting a rash. It starts on the head and goes down. What we look at on that day of onset of rash, 4 days before, 4 days after, for a period of 9 days, you're infectious. And most people, when they get a fever, especially if they get a rash, they're not going somewhere. But before they got that, it can be 2 days, 3 days where they were infectious and didn't know. But that's what they should be looking for. And if they have that, we ask, you need to stay home. You don't go out into the public. Talk to your doctor, see if there's a possibility of measles. And then the physicians. In this case, we've had two physicians actually diagnose it that caught it. We're very fortunate there.
Other questions at this time? Any update on the cyclosporus?
The cyclospora, I told you last week, 41 cases. As of this week, we still have 41 cases. I expect that to go to 42 based on a report we're investigating, so it's slowed down for us. There was a national call yesterday, but because of this other situation, we weren't able to attend it. I do know, and I believe it's been reported in the news, of a particular investigation going on in Fort Bend County. We hope to give us some more information about the food items in Texas that have been the cause for our problems.
Any other questions at this time, court members?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
know how to stack these up, don't you?
Yes, sir. Members of Court, a week ago to item D, this is the transportation bond, it's the bond package piece. And today we're specifically going to talk about transportation. And I'm going to start the presentation just by a quick overview. First of all, let me say that one of the questions that we've had in the past and that we made sure that happened this time is that the numbers that transportation has as far as dollars and the numbers that audit has as far as dollars, those numbers have been reconciled. So when you see what our presentation is today, you're going to find that both audit and transportation agree on those particular numbers. Second of all, the way the presentation is going to move, I'll sit down in just a second. Renee is going to come forward. She's going to give you a very high overview of the financials. Then Randy's going to come and talk about the details in the report. And then finally, we want to make sure also that that we've included this both on the slides, but there's some greater detail that we have included in your red folder. You'll see it looking like this, but there's a back slide also. This talks about all 5 members of the court, their discretionary funds, how much they have available. It also details those projects that are under agreement and that are pending agreement. And those numbers will reconcile with the presentation that you hear today. And then finally, after the presentation, and as we go through the presentation, staff's recommendation is that we still sell $40 million worth of debt to cover transportation-related issues for the next 2 years. And that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Tidwell.
Well, as Mr. Mania said, Laura Wiest in my office has worked extensively with Randy Skinner. We've worked with GK, and I've been involved to try to make sure that we are in agreement. So the numbers, I want to walk through just a couple of, again, as he mentioned, overview items, and I also want to point out a couple of processes, the way we do it, which may be causing some of the numbers to look different than what you expected. If we go to page 2, this is just a summary of the fact that we were authorized by the voters to sell the $200 million. To date, we actually have sold $126.7. Mr. Manius is just mentioned the current recommendation is to sell the $40 million, which would leave authorization to sell in the future the $33.3 just to get up to the full $200 million. This is a recap of where we've actually used the money, how we've used it on page 3. And I would point out that because we were authorized to sell $200 million, and originally we made an assessment of various projects and came up with the yellow and the green projects, and we identified projects, we may have projects that were identified that we still have not sold the debt for. So it's kind of like your line of credit at the bank. You may have a line of credit at the bank, but until you actually go to the bank and say, I want to draw down $100, put it in my account, you don't have any cash to spend. You just have a line of credit. Well, we have authorization to sell debt, but until we actually sell the debt, we may not have the cash because we actually haven't drawn down the line of credit. So if you go back and look at the $126,700,000, the amount paid for the $89 million is what the auditor's office shows has actually been paid as of August 20th, which of course then leaves approximately the $37 million in cash. The rest of this slide depicts where that money is already committed or we believe is going to be committed to. We have projects that are currently under agreement, including projects that would have come out of the discretionary accounts that we believe will be paid either before the end of this year or all the way through FY 2015 for the $40 million that you see on the slide. We have additional amounts that we expect to be under agreement. So that's the $13 million. So the $40 million is already under agreement, but we have reason to believe, for whatever communication from the cities and transportations, that we already have the $13 million that is expected to be under agreement. and then also discretionary projects of another 10.6. So if you just went down through that, when we looked at all of those through 2015, we would be negative or less the amount needed of the $26,485,153. So we'd be overdrawn in our bank account if we use that simple analysis. If we sell the $40 million that's been recommended, we would have cash for projects that are not going to be already under agreement or expected to be under agreement that will be shown on the following slides of $13.5 million to still spend.
Plus the 33 that we still have.
Plus the 33 that we could still sell. That's correct. So if you sell nothing, we will not be able to fund cash-wise all of the projects under agreement and those expected to come under agreement, which is why the recommendation to sell debt. One other thing that's key as we walk through this, and as Randy walks you through the various projects, for the expected savings to be realized and distributed, the project has to be closed, and we distribute those at the beginning of the following fiscal year. So throughout your documents here, you have actual savings that were distributed for 2012 and we will but we will not distribute any savings, say for example, for projects closed this year in 2013 until October. So come October of this year, we'll go through and distribute to the discretionary accounts those savings. So as far as the actual savings, when you look at the projects, the North Tarrant Parkway, when that project's closed and those savings are realized, they'll be realized in these numbers in October.
But that's just your decision to do that.
That's the way we've had to do it. And the primary reason, it's not just a decision, we are encumbering those funds at the beginning of each calendar year based on the contracts that are being entered into. In the case of TxDOT, we're encumbering the full amount at the time we enter into the agreement with TxDOT. We need to end that fiscal year and that project needs to be closed, and we enter into another agreement at the beginning of the following fiscal year before we recognize those savings.
But if the project is closed, then the encumbered amount, they did not use all the encumbered amount, then that amount is available at that point in time to be.
That part, in theory, we could free it up in some time other than at year end. We've historically waited to the end of the year. Yes, sir.
Let me ask you a question. When you encumber these funds to TxDOT, I guess that's the proper term, and the budget amount of those funds that was done in the beginning, let's say was $10 million, our part. We've encumbered $10 million. I've gone through all this that GK gave me, and I can see that the number that we budgeted is the number we are playing with, basically. When the job bids, is that when we know what the job is going to cost, is that when we, quote, encumber it based on that number or the other number, the budgeted number or the real number? Because it appears to me we're not using the real numbers.
The reason we're doing it on the budgeted is because we're entering into those agreements with the cities on an annual basis, for example, or with TxDOT at the time you sign. I then am required to certify that there's funds available. So I'm certifying those funds available based on what that contractual agreement is before the bids are taken. So I have to certify funds availability for that full contractual amount like I do all the other contracts that come to court. When those monies get freed up, they can be freed up at various points, and certainly when those bids come in, but you would have to then go back and amend the document with the city.
That's what I was going to ask. So let me give you an example.
That's the way I understand it.
We enter into a contract with TxDOT. We say we'll contractually agree to pay you $10 million for this project. And they go out and they do a bid, and they open those bids, and now, based upon the percentage shares, instead of $10 million as our percentage shares, it's now $8 million. Unless TxDOT is willing to write all new documents and all new contracts that say you're now only on the hook for $8 million, then you've got to hold on to the 10.
I've certified funds for the full contract amount.
Because you've certified, and our contract says that we could be out as much as $10 million.
Correct.
is that our contract or is that the TxDOT contract that says even though this job's $8 million, we're obligated to 10? We're obligated to put up 10?
When I have to certify funds, it's based on the contractual document that the court is being asked to approve and that you're approving, whether it's with TxDOT or with the city. So I can only certify funds for the amount that you're entering into agreement to pay. If that changes, I need help from the attorney, but from my perspective, I've always had to have an amendment to that document that authorized me to change that funding, because you are obligated to pay based on that contractual document. With the cities, it's easier because each year, on an annual basis, we re-enter into an agreement with the city. And so, again, it's based on their cash flow and their expected cost, but we certify on an annual basis what you expect to spend. And if we're going to change how that process works, I'm certainly open to having discussion. It's not like I'm trying to keep all that money locked
I've
up.
got a particular job, and Randy's aware of it, and GK. We got $12 million budgeted, and the cost is 8-something. Okay? So we got $3.5 million.
And but if you'll bring me a legal document that authorizes me to change that amount, then I'll change it. But based on the
contract with TxDOT with the 8.5, with what it bid at. Okay, that's all I'm saying. There's a document out there that was signed by the county. We paid money, and I recognize that some entities pay TxDOT in full before the job starts, but we don't.
Right, we contract for the full amount, but we don't pay for it.
We don't
correct?
pay it. We pay it in payments.
Right.
Basically, they draw down on that amount. So I have a problem in understanding why we keep significant dollars in this state of animation for years, okay? And this is a project that's basically been finished for the most part a year ago.
And I'm more than open to having discussion, but I'd need legal advice and maybe even some discussion for how we would change how we did these documents.
I just want us to use real numbers and not play numbers, that's all.
Well, when you originally signed the contract with TxDOT, or when the project was originally put out there, was the budget $12 million?
Yes.
And did we sign some document indicating that out of that project, we would be willing to pay up to $12 million?
That was our agreement with the city. But when the job bid, now you got a real number.
Well, but the real number, but have the legal documents that if we originally committed to the city, we'd pay $12 million?
No, we basically originally committed to the city. We would pay up to a certain amount, not over.
Okay, but up to $12 million.
And, well, evidently, based on the information in 2006.
And I'm not an attorney, but just like Mr. Phillips brings back change orders. I mean, we historically have some sort of document that comes back to the court that authorizes or changes the total amount, which then allows me to unencumber those funds.
Well, I think those total amounts, there's going to be change orders. I understand that. But the particular job I'm talking about has basically been completed for a year. We don't have the final paperwork yet. Now, I will admit that.
So again, I still need.
Why don't we have the final paperwork?
And that's beyond.
Why don't we have it?
Because it sounds like we can't get the cities to give it to us.
Well, have we asked the cities? We have now, but did we 6 months ago, 8 months ago? That's my question. When the job's finished, we need to be very proactive to get our money freed. That's all. It makes no sense. And then let's say that issue, this job has been finished almost a year. Let's say you don't get that paperwork till October the 1st. Then that money will go back into a fund that can be used for another year, correct?
Theoretically, yes.
Well, that's what you said. So,
right. That's the way we've historically done it.
It takes a bad situation, and that makes it even worse.
And again, we're open to looking at that process, but we do have to have those legal documents.
We're seeing pricing continue to rise. And all I'm saying is, every nickel and dime we can spend today is a cheaper dollar than we're gonna spend tomorrow, and I don't think we're doing as good of a job as we need to do to free up our money. And if we're holding ourselves hostage, in my opinion, and that's crazy. Let's get that money freed up. Let's start improving transportation and reducing congestion, because that's what that bond issue was all about. It wasn't about holding the money, and it's silly to not try
And
to
I
move
understand
these
your
projects
frustration,
forward.
and I'll be happy to do whatever I can. I am limited in what I can do until those documents are presented to me.
We need to direct those comments to the Transportation Department and to my office. And I understand what you're saying, Commissioner. Yeah, the one thing about, and just one quick comment about TxDOT, when we enter into LaPofas with TxDOT, which means that it's a combined funding of local, state, and sometimes federal, that if TxDOT carries the contract, they require for us to fully identify the outside maximum cost, and we enter into that LaPofa. Most cities have to pay all of that money up front.
I know.
The county, with our relationship with TxDOT, is that we don't necessarily have to pay it all up front. However, we have to contractually agree to have it available. That's why Renee goes ahead and encumbers those funds.
I have to count those beans. My beans have to match those legal documents. And until I get revisions of those legal documents, releases of liens, change orders, whatever they are, that says that I'm authorized then to change that amount, I have to keep that money set aside to fund that contract, because I've certified that that money's available. So I have to have a legal document. You would not want me, for this or any other obligation, to be releasing those funds until I had that appropriate paperwork.
Is that the same procedure did you use that same exact procedure when we built the jail? Which had a $90 million and cost us somewhat less than that, I believe.
We had change orders.
Did you encumber that entire amount of dollars?
Depending on the way it was set up, yes. If I have to enter into an agreement for the full $90 million and have to certify that I have funds available for the full $90 million, then yes, sir, I'm going to have a change order when a bid comes in that's less. And if there's a change order, or we actually issue, I think, a supplemental contract, or however that works.
Close. What we did is we go out and the construction manager goes out, and then when he develops a maximum price, then that's the amount that I think was encumbered, because that's when a maximum price amendment to the contract was submitted to you folks. You approved it with the certified number, and then that was the number that was certified. That was the number that should have been segregated out. Now, were there change orders after that? The way construction management contracts work, there are very few change orders after that, because we're so far down the process that the construction manager feels rather comfortable with it, and that's I think how it works.
But I can assure you I don't change the number during that process without a document just like this. That is the way we do all of it.
I think you change the number based on what the contract is.
Right.
Not based on what the estimate was in 2006 that was done before it even went to the voters. There was no contract or construction manager to even give you that estimate. That estimate probably came from an architect.
Randy,
Based
come
on
up,
the
buddy.
action taken by this court.
Come on up. I see you chomping at the bit there.
So, and one final comment. Commissioner Fix, you're absolutely right. What we need to start doing, we've been doing it, but we need to become more aggressive in that if we see projects that are about to finish, then we need to go to those jurisdictions that we partner with and strongly encourage them to finish those projects, close the thing out, so that if there's any savings, that we can free that cash up so that it's available for you all to spend. We need to do a better job on that.
We also have situations in which our cities decided to change the scope of the project without communicating with us. So that is also a challenge that we have to deal with as well.
If I could add a little clarity also to the discussion with the North Town Parkway.
This was a project that originally we had about $7.5 million in that project. Again, but going back to the 2006 estimates. Through the defederalization process, which we'll cover in just a moment, we were added or transferred funding to that, about $6.6 million. So we wound up with about a little over $14 million. Yeah, when we realized that the cost of the project was actually coming in less than what we anticipated, we went to the city and we had those discussions with the city about, would you be willing to reduce that amount in our renewal agreements? We have to have these renewal agreements each year, which you see each year. We asked if it was possible for us to reduce that down to the amount that we actually anticipated spending, which is actually around $9.7 million. The city was unwilling at that time to do that. They felt like they would be, they were not in a position to go down to that level. They would rather have had $12 million just in case there was additional costs. And so we went ahead and moved forward with the renewal agreement at $12 million. So we have had those discussions, but and also at the same time we've been operating under the.
Randy, was that after that project bid at $14.9 million?
It was after we received after we knew about the new bid. So once the project bid and we saw that the costs were lower, we went to the city and said.
They just not want to pay anything?
Well, no, they have their money in the project. Originally, it was 7.5 from the county and 7.5 from the city. So they still have their money in the project. It's just that they were not willing to go down to the 9.7 that we were hoping for. So we moved forward with a renewal agreement at that level. So
you moved forward with an agreement. They were willing to take us down to $12 million versus the 14.
They were willing to go down to 12. They were not willing to go down to the level that we were hoping we would get them to.
And this is the city of North Richland Hills.
Correct.
Keller also?
Keller. But North Richland Hills has been our primary contact. And also, let me just
what's the latest right now? Who have we contacted? Who have we communicated with? And what have they said?
We had a meeting with their staff just recently, which included Mike Curtis, the assistant city manager, and just reiterated to them, we really need to have your final paperwork for the project. It's been accepted by the city of Keller and North Richland Hills. We just simply can't close it out unless we have the final paperwork from the city.
The city of North Richland Hills.
Correct.
I've also contacted and talked with the city manager of North Richland Hills, and I urged him to let's close it out, let's free that cash up so that we can go and build some more roads. And he assured me, and I think this is 2 or 3 weeks ago, that they knew that they'd heard our message loud and clear that we wanted it closed, and he was moving as quickly as he could because it was really a combination with North Richland Hills and Keller. And so they're trying to close it out.
Randy, is Keller basically working through North Richland Hills, so the contract's not really with Keller and North Richland Hills?
Our agreement is with North Richland Hills, and then North Richland Hills has an agreement with Keller. Correct.
I personally, I'd have raised hell with them when they hit you on the $12 million, because we were only supposed to pay for half the project, and I know we defederalized it, and that changed some things.
Right.
They got a heck of a deal.
Well, they're not paying. We're not paying. Well, they're still only paying half. We're still only paying half.
Correct.
Is that correct?
From based on all the submittals, we don't pay except half. We pay half of everything that's submitted to us. So when they provide us with the invoices, we pay. We're actually paying 65% because of defederalization, but that's money that was already. It's not additional money. It's money that's been transferred. And we'll go over that. I was going to point that out in my presentation. So.
Why don't you go ahead and start on your presentation?
Very good. I'll do that. I want to first start with the completed projects. This is my favorite part of the presentation. The more we add to this, the more successful we are. You've seen I won't spend a lot of time on this first slide. You've seen these projects before.
These are projects that were completed early in the process. Here we can see that there have been several intersection improvements in Arlington that have been completed. The Bowman Springs widening in Kennedale, the 156 realignment. I would point out here, we were having the discussion earlier with regard to the TxDOT projects. This was a TxDOT project. And you can see that we have the original bond funds and you can see the final county funds that have been expended. In this case, that was a situation where we knew that the cost was less than what was needed from the county, and we went to TxDOT and sought an amendment to the contract, which obviously was passed, and we were able to save $1.7 million. The Longhorn Road widening.
Randy,
yes,
let me
sir.
ask you a question, please.
Sure.
How do we determine success of these projects and this program? Is it just that we completed the project, or are there other things that can be measured that were improved because we did the project? And are we measuring those things?
That's an excellent question. As we knew before in 2006 when we developed the program, we wanted to see congestion mitigation. We wanted to see air quality improvements.
Right.
And with the cities I think we got some really good projects from the cities in that respect. If you were to drive some of these locations beforehand, you could just see the traffic snarls that you would run into. And so as the project, and I've had the privilege of seeing this as the project is developed out, actually. As these projects are complete, I try to get out there and drive them myself. Now, I know this is anecdotal. I'm not speaking from an analysis perspective. But definitely, there have been improvements as a result of these projects. And perhaps there might be one thing that we may want to take a look at when the project is complete, is to do a before and after and see the results. But I think that we have definitely seen some improvements, and the cities have actually commented to us from that perspective as well.
Okay.
Well, I want to chime in on that, okay? In my opinion, and based on my observation, okay, the success of these projects are not quantifiable. They're not tangible. Very few constituents realize that we are doing this, and frankly, a lot of the elected officials that I talk to don't even know that the county is doing this in partnership with cities. In fact, to remedy some of the situation, I have implemented a process in my office. At the beginning of the project, we're going to send out a letter to every elected official in that city, informing them that we're about to begin this project, and this is the partnership. And then at the closing of the project, I'm going to send out a letter to inform those elected officials that this is what we have done together. And we just talk about doing that, but the goal here is if we are doing a lot of good through this bond program, but if our constituents don't know about that, then we need to rethink our marketing strategy a little bit.
Sure.
Maybe we just need to put signs out that says that this construction is funded by your Tarrant County transportation bonds.
And we do require that in our interlocal agreements with the cities. And so that is a requirement. I've encouraged a few of the cities to follow through with that, but can't always catch all of them.
Randy, I would say that in my area, they know the county's involved, most of them, in these projects. And of course, Glenn was commissioner and put all this together. So you should get all the credit. But
everybody else on the court. I mean, that was the whole purpose for the evaluation committee. And as far as deciding the success, I mean, I don't know what criteria the group used to rate and to rank the programs, but
they've made a huge difference in mobility.
They have made a huge difference.
I mean, like
Yeah, make a huge
Golden
difference.
Triangle Boulevard, 156.
Absolutely.
What about the possibility?
Our goals, as he said, were congestion mitigation and air quality, and we ought to be able to measure those two things
is there a report? Do you think, would it be a good idea for us to compile a report and then present that to the public as the result?
At the conclusion of our program?
I don't know, could be a progressive report, or at the end, somehow we need to inform the public about the success of this program, because I don't think a lot of people have access. I mean, they do have access, but they will take the time to go through these things. Sure. I mean, it's just my opinion. Something to think about.
Let us look at that. That may be something we can do.
It's election time. It's time to think about it.
Well, let me just point out, on this particular slide, the Longhorn Road project, when we talk about the defederalization, and I know we discussed it a little bit earlier, but what we're talking about is the removal of federal funds from a local project. In this particular case, we had federal funds of $3.3 million that were applied to Longhorn Road. But if you recall, in the early part of our program, we had a project for I-35, which was from Loop 820 to US 287. We had $10 million allocated for that project. Well, I think in the back of our minds, pretty much all of us knew that that was going to be an out-year project. I certainly didn't expect that to go to construction in 3 to 5 years, and it hasn't. It's only just recently that it's gone to construction. So, but at the same time, we had the cities like Saginaw that were saying, well, you know, I've got this $3.3 million on this project, but it requires federal review. It requires the permitting process is going to take much longer. Is there not any way that we can fund this locally with local funds? And so in order to make that happen, we simply took $3.3 million from the $10 million that was allocated to the I-35 and pulled it over to Longhorn Road. At the same time, the RTC took the $3.3 million that was in federal funds and moved it over to I-35. So basically, we wanted to match local funds with local projects, federal funds with federal projects. That way we were able to advance Longhorn Road, and that's why you see it in the completed list at this time.
Good job.
And so I wanted you to understand that there may be there's some other projects that utilize those same funds.
And what you're saying then is that while we moved these dollars around, not any of these projects were handled more special than any of the other projects.
Correct. And then it was an even swap, so there's no additional funding. It's just an even swap. Moving on, you can see this list. There are, again, more intersection improvements. Those tend to go rather quickly because they're quicker to implement. But I want to point out here, the gold dots that you see refer to the anticipated, well, there will be excess funds that will be allocated to your discretionary accounts at the end of the fiscal year, September 30th. We had the other realized savings in this particular category are funds that have already been allocated to your accounts. The projects with the gold dots are the ones that we will be adding to your accounts at the end of the fiscal year. And so, to date, for those projects that are completed, and these are all the projects that were in our original prioritized list, we've spent $35.5 million, and we anticipate, or we've seen a realized savings of $5.1 million. For those projects that are discretionary projects that are ongoing or that have been completed, we have that includes the Wichita Street Extension, Pennsylvania. Baird Farm was one of the first projects in the program that used discretionary funds. The Business 287, Euless Grapevine, the Gilman Extension in Kennedale, and the Dirks Widening project. So those projects are complete, and we've expended $7.2 million. As we've shared with you before, there are going to be projects that have been withdrawn from the program, and you've seen this list before, for the exception of the last project. Martin at Cheeseburger was recently removed from the program at the city's request, and so now we are seeing a $681,000 $778 that is also added to the excess funds.
Is that part of the 5.1 million?
That's in addition to. Well, what about those projects that are ongoing right now? The good news about this list is that several of these projects are nearing completion. In fact, we expect to be complete either in September or October, starting with the Collins Street extension. I think they're just doing some finalization work right now on that project. And this is another one where you'll notice the difference between the original bond funding and the county funding. This was another case where we realized that the project had bid for less, and so we went to the city and negotiated a lower amount when we came back for the renewal agreements. You can see these other intersection improvements. West Broad and Mansfield is well underway right now.
And on those, Randy, I mean, I'm assuming that if you think that it's close to September or October, we should be pushing everything we can to try to get them done in September. And if it ends up being in the first week of October, then I think we want to talk with Ms. Tidwell about the possibility of us not having to wait a year to allocate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not arbitrary on 10-1, it's just, it has to be some point.
I understand where you're coming from.
And we've been operating from the excess funds policy that was passed by the court, saying it would be allocated on September 30th. So, but moving on, we have the Abrams Street widening, US 377 in Benbrook. You'll notice the difference in the original funding and the current funding. This was as a result of the defederalization process. When we tried to defederalize North Tarrant, we basically used up all of the $10 million, but we needed just a little bit more in order to make that happen. And so that $301,000 or so came from the US 377 project. Golden Triangle, again, we're waiting for TxDOT to sign off on the road, and we're needing that last invoice from the city, and then we'll be able to close that project out.
Is there anything y'all can do to, again, try to get that done before?
Sure. We've had a conversation with the city, but we can certainly continue to speak with them about that.
And is there, in fact, $1 million left?
I believe that they're going to be asking for that remainder as part of their final reimbursement request.
Mm-hmm.
So is that on Golden Triangle, is that the city of Fort Worth have that contract, or is that TxDOT?
Well, there are TxDOT funds on that project. Our agreement is with the city of Fort Worth.
So we just need to ask the city.
Correct. East Rosedale widening. Let's see, FM 1187 is another project that's open to traffic. I think for now we're just simply waiting to get the financial closeout from TxDOT.
I'm going to go back to that Golden Triangle again.
Sure.
So you said there are TxDOT funds on that project.
Yeah.
It's in addition to the 14.6.
Yeah. Yes.
Fort Worth is still paying an equal dollar amount to what we're paying.
Correct. They have, by the time you take it, put their amount for design and construct and the other work that's gone into it, utilities.
$8 million in federal funds or something?
I'm sorry?
Wasn't there about $8 million?
I believe so. I want to say it might have been a little more than that.
So that total project was around $22, $23 million.
It was a large, yes, large project. If I can get that exact amount, I just don't have that right now. The John McCain, that's another Pleasant Run. That's another intersection improvement that's almost complete. Let me point out on this Lake Ridge Parkway widening, we originally had $600,000 allocated to the project in our program, and we still do. But through Precinct 2, some additional $1.5 million was added to it in discretionary funds, and you'll see that a little bit later. Lynn Creek Parkway.
Go back to the Colliesville deal that John
Sure.
McCain. I mean, it's not a big deal. That job's been finished for 3 or 4 months. I drive through it every day, going to the office. So it's been finished. Again, it's just a case probably of, if You haven't already called them, call them.
Yeah, we had a meeting with them actually, and just had that same conversation. If there was a way that they could get the information to us and we'd be able to close that out. We just simply can't unless we get the.
But in that particular one, we're paying exactly what the original funding was.
It appears to. We haven't paid anything yet.
That's, we anticipate that they would need that. Lynn Creek Parkway is another project that's almost complete. Let me point out, too, that this SH-26 widening project may look a little odd here, the way that the funding works out, but this was originally a project in our program from SH-114 to Pool, where originally had $6.4 million allocated to that project. They subsequently came back and received Recovery Act funds to cover the construction. And so the city has requested that we retain $300,000 on that original section, just as a safety net, but that we move $4 million over to the extension of 26 from Pool to John McCain, and then the remainder of that to supplement the Bass Pro project. And you'll see that as we go through here. And you can see the reference to the court order that did that.
We took that action on a specific vote of this Commissioner's Court. We have
Correct.
a separate court order that dealt with that particular action.
Let's see, Roof Snow widening in Keller, that's another project that they're just simply trying to do the punch list items on that and get the paperwork to us. 287 frontages are basically done. We're just waiting on the financial close, so we hope to close that out soon. The North Tarrant Parkway, we've discussed that, but you can see how the funding works out there. Bailey Boswell is well under construction. East Rosedale, excuse me, in Fort Worth is under construction right now. This is a project that's been in the wings for a long time, so we're glad to see that moving forward. Jackson at Cheeksburger, a lot of these intersection improvements. Roof snow widening, that we have $600,000. That's just on the design phase of that project. And from what I understand, that's at 95% design, so we should be able to close that out soon, or at least fund that soon. Precinct Line and East First Street, the Commissioner's Court just recently approved those agreements. So those projects will be moving forward. And so you can see the totals here. We just added back in the $10 million in the original funding so you can to show you, be more accurate with regard to that. And we've expended to date on these projects $42.7 million.
What is this East First Street widening from Beach to Oakland?
That project was originally included in our bond program. It's a widening to, I want to say it's 4 lanes, I believe. I believe it is. Right. So.
And this number beside it, 2/4.
That would be the lanes, two lanes to 4 lanes.
Okay.
Forgot I had that in my own slide.
All right.
Okay, now for those projects that are under agreement that are discretionary dollars, you can see that the Bowman Springs Bridge that was recently constructed and it's open to traffic, we're just again waiting on the final closeout from TxDOT on that. There's that $1.5 million for Lake Ridge Parkway that we discussed earlier. We're still showing the FM 1938 in here. I certainly don't anticipate any more expenditures on it, but we haven't actually gotten a closeout from TxDOT on that yet. The Harley extension is still ongoing, although I think that's nearing completion as well. And then, of course, we see here the TWU improvements, Commissioner, having to do with the sustainable development work along the East Rosedale project. You'll see here an allocation for North Tarrant Parkway. These are for some additional lighting to be consistent along the entire corridor. That, as I think we've expended some on that project. And then you see here there are some additional projects that are under agreement right now. The total bond investment is $6.9 million. So far, we've spent $3.5 million on these projects. We talked a little bit earlier about future projects. Well, I think our slide's frozen here. There we go. East Broad, Debbie Lane, and I'm sorry.
Could you go back one page?
Sure.
We got a project called Baker Boulevard, $300,000, and that's a part of, I believe, a tax equity financing district with the city of Richland Hills. And personally, I question whether they'll ever do that project. At what point do we say, hey, you know, we're going to pull our dollars if you don't use it and go use those dollars somewhere else? Because they're encumbered now.
Sure.
I mean,
Well, at this particular point, it does show.
probably 3 years ago.
Sure. And I think that they were looking at getting some RTC funds, and I don't know that it played out at the time the way that they were hoping it would. Then they eventually got the RTC funding, and then it became a matter of the match itself, which is the $300,000. But it is a later year project, and the way that we viewed it in our discussions with the cities is that if your project is going to be complete by 2016, you're within the time frame of the program, and unless the Commissioners Court desired to take any other action, we've gone with that basically, and so that has been the case here.
Okay.
So those future projects, there are 3 in Mansfield. I'll just point out that these are really right around the corner. We expect these to be under construction by the first of the year. And so we're really moving along with these, even the future projects. Whitechapel, Grapevine Highway at Harwood. Excuse me. There's the SH-26 widening. I mentioned to you that we had $300,000 that we wanted to retain on the original section. And then you can see the remainder here. The big project at the end is the TexRail project, and latest I know about as far as the construction start will be 2015, but typically in the fall we'd have representatives from the T come and provide you with a little more detailed status update.
But on that particular one, the $20 million is not available out of the $40 million that we're recommending that we sell. If this project starts in 2015, it would probably be in the latter part of the year, and that's 2 years away basically, and we would have to come back and sell debt to cover that.
The last section that I wanted to talk to you about are the future discretionary projects. And these are, you see that I've listed the McCart project. This is a roadway that's been built, but we've been working with the ISD to work out the funding mechanisms on that. US 377, we've added some additional funds for utility relocations. There are 2 Norwood reconstruction projects.
Wait a minute, jump back up to South Main reconstruction, because that's
Yes.
one we defederalized in some way.
It was a defederalization, but not with our bond funds. It was money that some federal dollars that had been applied to that South Main project through the city of Fort Worth, but in order to expedite the project, they were asking, in a sense, yes, that we would be defederalizing that, but with the use of our discretionary funds. And so by allocating that $740,000, it is now all locally funded and allows the project to move forward.
And the federal funds went where?
The federal funds were transferred to the, I believe the name is 6 Points Urban Village within Precinct 1.
You'll have to help me know where that is, but we'll talk.
I can get that information for you. The Norwood reconstruction is you'll see two entries here. The first is for $445,000. This was a joint effort between Precinct 3 and Precinct 1. And so that amount would be split equally between the two precincts. And then the $255,000 is for the labor and materials for Precinct 3 crew to actually do the overlay and a portion of that. And then we have the Loop 820 Backage Road. This is also another allocation for I believe the city is getting close to wanting to have some conversations about that, so that's on the horizon.
Are they asking for more money?
No. I think what their intent is simply to give us an update on the improvements that they have planned.
Okay.
And the last bit here has to do with several intersection improvements. I'm sorry we don't have a great deal of detail on these just yet, or these have just been discussion items at this point, but there are commitments that we have heard from you, basically. But we wanted to include that in our presentation.
Westport Avenue Hassler is a discussion, not a commitment.
Which ones?
Westport and Avondale Hassler. That's in my opinion, a real big if, because the city of Hassler's got to come up with a whole bunch of money. So we're there to work with them, but until they make a commitment, we can't make it. It's a discussion. Okay?
Okay.
That's why these are not under contract or not. This is just something potentially anticipated.
Well, this $4 million down at the bottom is a commitment, and I got the court's concurrence on that before I made the commitment, and they passed a bond issue, and they are going to build the overpass.
And we just need to work on getting the agreements in place. These
Yes.
don't have the agreements yet.
Randy, and that same thing, again, is true on Timberland.
Mm-hmm.
It's a discussion.
Sure.
Told them if they come with theirs, we can be there with ours, but they haven't done anything. That's the city of Fort Worth. The Highway 26 additional $1 million is, again, another discussion, not a commitment. They've got to come up with a whole bunch of money on Highway 26.
And I appreciate that. I just wanted to include that here just for reference sake, but until we have agreements, they're...
And the judges have made a commitment sharing the $30,000 on the Saginaw, the Simpson Park.
Yes, we have.
Somebody mentioned to me that might be 34 instead of 30. Whatever it is, I'm in for 50%.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I wasn't for sure. I put that in as 30, so until I need to get more information.
I think we have a record of what it was. I know we do.
I'll check I'll follow up on that to get the exact amount.
All right.
It seems to me that I have a $500,000 commitment on the extension of McPherson Road. You're shaking your head, but I don't think you're right. I think I'm right.
It's your money. I mean,
we do have. Let me see. Right.
I missed it then. I didn't see it.
We have it's a. Oh, okay. It's
trouble walking.
Slide 14.
What are you doing here?
We got two of them, both of them, Francisco. You got a check? Fernando, you got a big check in your pocket?
what page is that?
This is 14. This is on slide 14. And it's the third one from the bottom.
Okay.
They were watching the screaming video.
All right.
So this is that
Where to go?
extension. Okay.
All right.
I apologize,
So-
Commissioner.
Those two guys are waiting for me.
How much is that Bailey Boswell Bridge project, the total project, do you know?
Oh, the last total that I remember seeing was around 11 million, but I think it's probably maybe more than that now. But about a couple of years ago, when we were having those discussions, it was around 11 million.
This an overpass, right?
Yes.
Not an underpass?
No, it'll be an overpass over Business 287 and the railroad tracks.
I'm thinking of the stadium underpass.
The stadium was the underpass.
So the cost here is only 11 million?
For the
total cost of this?
Well, at the time. I'm not sure what it is now.
We don't know what it is now.
Right. That was probably a couple of years ago. So those are all of the projects that are in our bond program. And just to follow up on what Renee had mentioned earlier, if you take the totals of the expenditures from slide 7, slide 8, 13, and 15, you add those up, it comes to we match on the amount of dollars that have been expended. So I would be happy to answer any questions. If you have any questions about your projects, we'd be happy to come to your precinct and talk about them and help you out in any way that we can.
Randy, would you show slide 20? Go one more.
Sure. I'm sorry, did I not? Oh.
That's just a recap, and we mentioned that previously. That's just a recap on the discretionary funds that are available by each court member. And if you look at the last number on the last line, $18.8 million, that's how much that you're authorized to spend. But even with the sale of the $40 million, that we only have about 13.5 to apply to that. Now, as more savings are realized, that'll increase the cash available so that you all will have more money to spend on your discretionary piece.
On the precinct for the $5,015,000, that includes the $4 million for the project at Saginaw?
Yes, that would be included.
And it still leaves $4,440,000.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that $5 million is the Haltom City million, the $4 million on Saginaw, and then the $15,000 that you and the judge are going to split.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
Sure.
Thank you, Randy.
As both Randy and Renee have reiterated, if there's specific questions we can answer for you, if you'll just ask either one of those two, and we'll try to get the answers for you. Commissioner Fickus, we understand and we've heard very clearly what you've said, and we will try to increase the pressure to see if we can bring some of those to conclusion. Your Honor, I believe that's all we have this afternoon.
Are we going to get in a routine of 2 o'clock lunch hours?
It looks like it.
Yeah.
At this time, we will recess our open meeting and proceed to close to discuss items.
Those of us who cure are back.
Having returned from our closed session and there being no business to conduct at this time, we are adjourned.